now call the Tuesday, September 26, 2023 Rome Town Board Budget Meeting to order. Roll call starting on my left.
Capel here.
Jumati here.
Cole here.
Bauerheit here.
Supervisor Minter has
He's
advised
coming
us
in the
he'll be.
door right now.
Oh, and he's actually on time. Supervisor Minter is here. All right. Item number 3, certify the posting of the meeting, please.
I certify that on Friday, September 22nd, 2023, the agenda for the Town of Rome Board Budget Meeting for Tuesday, September 26th, 2023 was posted at the Rome Town Hall at 3:50 p.m., posted at Quick Trip LLC at 4:05 p.m., posted at Nakusa Port Edward State Bank at 4:11 p.m., emailed to the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune at 3:42 p.m.
Okay. Item number 4, approve the agenda.
Motion
move
to
approval as
approve.
written.
Oh, go ahead.
Ladies first.
All right, motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Cole, second by Supervisor Capel to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, citizen comments. Do we have any orange cards? Okay. The board will also take comment from the public on agenda items as called by the chair, but not during citizen comment. Please note that once the board begins discussion on an item, no further comment will be allowed from the public on that issue. I do just want to make a quick statement and thank Jamie again for her help during this budget process and the training that she and Wendy have both provided Melissa at some points throughout the budget process. We wouldn't be able to get through it at breakneck speed like we have. I also want to make a comment again, also reassuring our staff and others that positions are not being eliminated. They're just simply being reevaluated as we move forward in discussions as far as the budget and what we're budgeting for and moving forward with consideration as seeking out certain efficiencies. So thank you everyone for your cooperation and understanding, and we appreciate everybody's efforts in this process. Do sincerely mean that to everyone. Thank you. Discuss and possible action on the following items. Number 6, discussion and possible action, review of the addition of an administrative support position and job duties, description for the zoning and building department. Combined with number 7, discussion and possible action, review of the addition of administrative support position in the general fund. But we'll take number 6 first. You have before you a draft that was created for an administrative assistant support specialist for the planning and zoning and building department, as well as the clerk treasurer departments. This is at this point a draft which was discussed at the last meeting and previous meetings. This is the glue that we had talked about that would bring the other pieces together that we've already voted on. Administrator Gebert, as well as Jamie, as well as Nick has had an opportunity. He had input, I had input. Jamie has reviewed this. If there's
Madam Chair,
additional, yes,
yeah,
please.
If I could, so just kind of dovetailing off where we've had discussions in this over the last couple meetings. So this piece, as Chairwoman has mentioned, would be that individual that's kind of that liaison and glue between various experts in the department as well as relevant committees and commissions that are in there. That being the Plan Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, and then the Town Board, of course, as well. So really that kind of go-to person for some of that information. They may not always have the information, but they will be able to be that liaison between the general public and the individuals that might be able to help process those things. I say that because then if you look at the way that this, the essential functions are segmented, that first section is really public interaction, public-facing components of it. So the idea that they're going to be a information source for general, certainly the planning and zoning matters, also may take those questions and process those to our building inspector for the building matters as well. And the idea that we have in our zoning department currently a set of property files. It's an important component of that planning and zoning department. It's frankly vital as we look at the past approvals that happen. Somebody may ask what the status is of their property, and if they can do something, or if there was an approval to do something in the past. This individual would do the maintenance and updating of the property files. So we have those property files updated, up to date, and as a reference point if we do get those questions. In the same way, in order to do that, it was logical to make this person the custodian of records for matters that relate to comprehensive plans and zoning changes, general zoning and planning department matters. They're going to be the custodian and really keeper of those records. So there is a central point at which that person will be really the person that knows where to find the information in that regard. So if we need to pull a property file, we have a person that knows where that is and keeps that up to date. And then you'll see a couple different bullet points for support. As we talked about last time, right, the glue is also intended to provide support in various matters, and that's broken out in those final two bullet points in the first section. So on page 2, last two bullet points, first, support from an enforcement standpoint. Second, support from a receiving and review and issuance of licenses and permits standpoint. I don't think that's the be-all, end-all of the support that this individual would serve, but those are two important supporting roles that this person would provide. Not unlike the support that they would provide, as I referenced, to the Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. You see that in the next section. That support and follow-up is going to be important as there's agenda building and packet build-out, minutes production, and then follow-up. So it may not always be this individual doing the follow-up, but informing those that do need to do the follow-up that the Plan Commission took some action and that the follow-up needs to happen. Really being, again, that essential piece as you connect the Plan Commission to the public. Also, Board of Zoning Appeals, when we're talking about variances and the like, the notices that need to go out, same idea. That essential piece that bridges Plan Commission or Zoning Board of Appeals and the public. And then finally, another support area would be in the budget preparation and reporting. Again, being that central person working with the clerk treasurer in preparation of that budget and presentation to the board. It wouldn't necessarily be this person presenting it to the board, but assisting, supporting in the build out of the budget. So adding that to a role that this person would play is identified there on page 3 in those 3 bullet points. So I know that was a very quick overview, but I just wanted to kind of give the idea behind how those are organized in this document and what the thought process was behind why we organized it the way we did in light of how we had discussed previously with the role that this person would play.
And Jamie, did you have any additional comments you wanted to make? I know we took a look at this, and it is a little heavy on the zoning side. There's more additional administrative assistant support type pieces we had discussed that possibly would come from the transition plan.
I would agree. There are some administrative things that would relate to clerk treasurer that could be potentially added.
And there are some things that would actually be eliminated off of here that you had pointed out to me earlier prior to Attorney Flanagan's arrival that Dan were already contracting for his services that could be eliminated from here. So this is actually a fluid document that we could update, which is why we're calling it a draft.
There are some pieces related to building permits that Dan is handling. The language in here might not be incorrect. It might just be more in an assistance, not necessarily the individual that's providing it, but more just providing assistance.
Or support, right?
Or support, yeah.
So I think that the idea, the methodology going into this is a support role in that, and it's a support role to to planning, to zoning, and potentially aspects of building, is what we did, and I would agree with Chairwoman, a working document, right? But we wanted to give everybody an overview of what this role might look like in that department and how that would fit, because we had talked about the number of pieces, and this was a missing one in that discussion, a placeholder, if you will, and we wanted to be able to present kind of how that would build out in that department and what that might look like.
Do you have questions,
Yeah,
Supervisor Capel?
based on what I'm seeing in the agendas, Board of Zoning Appeals only meets as necessary. Okay, so that's not a real big item. It's not like monthly or anything.
So as needed, which isn't frequent, it's only going to be when there's an administrative appeal or a variance application. And even
they
those are set by our ordinance. The other piece that happens with a little bit more frequency is training. Now, those training opportunities may be, for example, the UW Extension does a training opportunity. Sometimes they'll do that as a webinar. This individual might poll everybody, make sure that there's availability, set up the screen to have that training. We also do what I would call, they're not like role-playing, but they're scenario trainings that I will often work with an individual to put together and then take the Board of Zoning Appeals through a scenario training. The reason we do that is because we don't see these requests that often,
Right.
but there's a statutory test that needs to be filed. So that's kind of how that person would play that role in there. It would be, again, a support role in the agendas, the minutes, and the training.
Are there questions,
Yeah.
comments? Yes?
Madam Chairman, what do you have in mind with regard to the last bullet item on page 2? It says, represent the Community Development Authority and the town in regards to the Rome Town Center as outlined in the Development and Design Manual. Does that mean that a new developer coming in, that they would be hosting that developer or not?
Likely answering their questions, or if someone called or stepped into town hall and said, how do I purchase property in Rome Town Center? They would tell them, they would explain to them the process.
Just in general, but when it comes down to actually developing a deal with that person, I would assume someone from the CDA would be involved in that?
Whole CDA, yep,
Okay.
then it would be handled through the committee process and brought to the town board as a recommendation, yep. Yep,
So I'm not confused, but I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So if there's an organizational chart, where does this person fit in? And is this replacing the hiring of a town administrator? Will we not be hiring a town administrator, or is this an added function? Or just explain to me how this works throughout this, what you're envisioning here, what this means. And it seems like this job that's described, associate degree, doesn't seem adequate to me for what all is being asked this person to do. And then there's no idea, maybe it's too early to know what type of salary would be paid to this person. So how it would fit into any budgeting.
we did put it into the budget at $22.50 an hour, so it
Okay.
would be an hourly position. And it's reflected as a 50-50 split between the general budget and zoning, because we anticipate that it would be somewhat a 50-50 split of their time as a full-time position between between general, which is where administrator falls now, and zoning. And from the job description, it would report to the town board.
Okay.
You didn't
Similar
answer
to
her
what-
first question, though. Does it mean to replace the town administrator?
I can't answer that question.
I
No,
don't
that
think
was
at any point
point.
in time it was presented or anticipated that this would be a replacement to the administrator. I think this is with the planning, zoning, and building department, really the zoning administrator. That role has now hybrided in a way, but I don't know that it was ever anticipated that this would do any of the functions that the administrator is doing, and I don't think it's drafted that way.
This was the hybrid piece we were talking about all along, that it included the specialist that would take care of the development planning, like Verbicker, Sam, that we just agreed to that agreement. Having Dan handling, which we already contracted with Dan last week, that does the zoning pieces and the building inspections. And this is that hybrid piece. And as we said earlier, this may be expressing a little bit more, and it sounds very heavy in zoning, but a lot of these pieces are maybe being expressed more than some of what they actually are on a day-to-day basis. And if you'll recall, our retention offer to Emily, she would be reporting directly to the town board had she have accepted that piece and stayed on with us. And a lot of some of the tasks that she did, we were gonna start peeling away from her and give to a support type person in a support type role. And that was why we looked at this particular piece, the glue between those other pieces were farming out and created a hybrid piece such as this position, which is why you see it at a wage of $22.50 hourly versus somebody that sits at the desk all day and doesn't do nuisance complaint like our code enforcement officer does. This person would assist the building inspector and then also help in our clerk treasurer's office with meeting minutes and agendas. So again, this is just a draft, but we've discussed this as a hybrid piece with those specialists that we're now paying agreements with to help us when a contractor comes in and wants to do housing in the Rome Town Center, which the CDA is the body that used to handle the land sales and also work with those developers to make sure it was the right kind of housing, and worked with the plan commission and then go through those steps till it came to the town board and those developments would move forward. So this is the administrative piece that handles all the paperwork and the filing.
And
So
who,
it's not meant to replace a town administrator.
and who is it intended that they would report to?
This person?
Yes.
The town board.
Why?
Or it could be the clerk treasurer.
Why wouldn't it report to
So
the administrator?
I don't think we're getting the answer to our question. Are we not hiring a town administrator?
I'm suggesting at this
We're
point that we have a
changing the
budget.
Organization.
I'm suggesting at this point that we look at the budget. We haven't, that's not on the agenda for this piece, but I'm suggesting that when we get further in our budget, we take the time and we talk about that as we've been going down this path with strategic planning, which we haven't completed yet. We haven't completed our corp, we haven't completed the strategic planning. And I'm saying to you that there's other pieces than just the two people that have written us a letter combined and said we need this piece or the whole place is gonna fall apart. We have very intelligent, strong department heads that need to have a chance to tell us our vision. We lost 4 of them for the reason that they haven't had. And that's nothing against Jamie, but why all of these levels? We have a PSC that the police and fire chief answer to, that then answer to us and go to all these meetings. Why can't we take a moment to just stop and breathe, look at this budget, make sure people's taxes aren't going to go up for sure, because we don't know that yet. We don't know that yet. Take a minute and breathe and work out some of these other integral pieces. Make sure we cut this budget to a place and have the right support staff, boots on the ground that gets the daily work done. That's nothing against Jamie. Nothing at all, nothing against the position. I was the one that originally advocated for that position. You see my name on the GovHR doc. Ask people. Nick was one of the interviewees that we had. But now let's take a step back and breathe for a moment and see if maybe we're still on the right track. There's nothing wrong with doing that, and make sure we're seeking out greater efficiencies
I
with
would
staffing.
try to step back and breathe and approach it with an open mind.
I am.
I say I would try to do that, but I'm telling you right now, I would give you pushback, I think, in the end, that we need to fill the town administrator job. I've said that all along, and I still say it now.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I just think I also see a lot of promise in our department heads, and if we just give them a chance, we move forward, and let's just make sure that our taxes don't go up this year, because we still don't know that for certain, that they're not going to, and I still see that there's cuts that may need to be made. I'm not saying cut it out. I'm also saying that we don't fill that position at some point again. But this was the hybrid piece we were talking about. And that's the reason why we lost a very good employee to an outstanding opportunity. So if we just sit and consider some of the things that have been in our faces and just take a step back and finish our strategic planning, look at some of these pieces, reevaluate them, and seek out greater efficiencies, and then move forward from there. Did you have questions, Jackie?
Do you know of any other municipality or town that is modeled after this type of plan that does not have a town administrator
Grand
or
Rapids has
someone?
7,500 people.
Okay,
They have 4 department heads. We have 3,000 people, We have 4 department heads. Well, actually, we are down to, let me see, 7. Right now, we are down to 3. We have a very efficient water utility where they coexist, where we have those 2 people we just talked about in closed session that we can't talk about here in open session, which they're running
Okay.
just fine without their director. We have a library board director that runs under a library board that's by state stat. Grand Rapids has a full-time department of police officers. They have a fire department, a volunteer fire department like ours. They have Parks and Rec.
And what is their model? So you're saying Grand Rapids, but what is their model? Do they have an executive committee that then reports to the town board? Or,
They have committees, and remember, we had our retreat, and we had boards, committees, and commissions, infusing them. And that's one thing I'm suggesting that we do as we get through this process. We go back and we look at our boards, committees, and commissions and make them more effective and use them more, just like we discussed having a personnel committee. Just like we looked at having our CDA have an economic development portion that's maybe that arm of it makes it more effective. Not that we're not effective, but how many meetings have we had to cancel because people don't show up, aren't able to show up, or not here? So
so I think I'll keep an open mind too, but the Grand Rapids comparison,
It was just one example.
Right, I
would also
see
say
it, but,
City of Wisconsin Rapids doesn't have that much of a different
okay,
model. Actually, if you look at their planning and zoning and building department, they have also a lead there, but then they have a number of experts in there. And they don't have an administrator or city manager. I mean, they have a working mayor.
they have a mayor.
But again,
working
you know,
mayor.
I think we can look at other communities, but you
Okay.
ultimately are doing what is right for yours, right? And so, we can throw out a number of communities, and I can also draw distinctions in a number of them as I'm familiar with them.
Mhm.
Ultimately, it's what's right for your community and the vision you all have. As you know, Chairwoman had said, I was here at the beginning when y'all looked at you know, going to an administrator and the reasons that you had in doing that, and the time that we had there, and you know, and the needs that we had, and it's very different 8 years later, right? And we're, you know, in a situation that, you know, I think you have the opportunity to look at the position and put a position description together that fits the town today, not necessarily modeled after any community, and this isn't modeled after any community. It was gone into with the idea that this is serving the needs of this community today, and I think I
It's for
spoke
us.
more than once to the idea that this could be interim or this could be long-term. I said it ad nauseum, right? The idea that this was something that seemed like it would work well for our needs today. Whether that's interim or long-term, that's still to be decided, and it would be ultimately you all that decided that. But again, I'll just go back to the answer that I gave. I don't think this was ever drafted as a replacement to that kind of level of position. It
No.
just isn't. And I don't think that there's parts of this that are intended to cover that. Maybe things that that Jamie has absorbed, but
Right.
not. This is not that level of position.
No, not at all, and that's not what it's intended to be. And I want us to decide this as a team, and I want us to all be a team. And there's a lot of people that feel a lot of different ways, and if we seek that out through the HR audit, we seek that out through our discussions, we seek that out through making our committees, commissions, and boards stronger and using their knowledge and their work. Otherwise, why have all those different bodies? And if we can make them stronger and more knowledgeable and have them work together, but give our department heads an opportunity too to have their visions and ideas heard as well. So, that's why this is being brought forward. And again, like Nick said, we talk about it a little bit repetitiously, but it's a hybrid position, and I think it's a good way to get a start. Again, it's a draft. If we can bring other pieces in after you've looked through the transition plan, some of those pieces that Jamie had assumed, that maybe go back to the clerk treasurer. And then as we look at a town administrator or whatever position down the road, we can remodel that. It doesn't have to be the same as what it was the first time out of the gate. It might be something more specific to what we are now, who we are now, and what we need going down the road. So that's what this whole process should be about, and I think we're at a really opportune time to reevaluate ourselves and move forward. And we've got a lot of smart people to do it. Yes, Supervisor Minter.
Okay, so setting the whole town administrator piece aside, because, I mean, that's tangent to what we're talking about here, but am I correct in my interpretation that between what we have with our building inspector, Dan Hansen, and the experts like the people from Van Briesen and others, Rebecca, and then this position, those three legs together are sort of looking to, at least for now, interim as Attorney Flanagan stated, replace the zoning administrator. Is that what is, that's how this piece is envisioned?
Right.
And it has some extra duties in order to sort of flesh it out a little bit more as far as amount of hours in a week.
Right.
Okay.
A lot of it is and not to minimize anybody's position either, but some of it's communication and document management activities in the office because we've contracted out those other services. Plus, you can make use of the CDA as well as the Plan Commission to work with those bodies that work with the expertise.
I'm just trying to picture how it's fitting into the budget, and I have a better idea now how it's fitting in that budget piece, because it's taking what was being paid or to do with the zoning administrator is now split up to those pieces that we have. Okay.
We talked about this last time as being the glue. This is the glue.
This is the glue.
This is the piece that would be here 40 hours a week, that would be able to channel people in the right direction for
Well-
anything considering planning or zoning. That's how I understand it.
Well, and here's the other piece of this, when we talk about it helping in the clerk treasurer's office, a piece that we haven't had for a while. We have an office assistant part-time that works here in the Public Works Department that also helps at the front desk a few hours during the week. Otherwise, that office is dark. The other people in the office, when that bell rings, have to go up there and help. People come in and they ask questions. They need help at the front desk. We haven't had a full-time person up there in a very long time. So as we're growing, people come to the window and they want their questions asked, or they deserve to have the help they need. So this would also help in that area. When that person isn't at that window, this person can be at that window. So that window is not dark anymore. And the other staff is not being disrupted. When that bell rings, somebody has to walk from back there, or Jamie has to get up from her office and be disrupted. Now that window can be staffed all the time, again. So otherwise, this person is sitting back where the zoning administrator used to work. So it's gonna cover a lot of different areas for us. So again, this is a draft and this can be modified if there's ideas, but we can take another stab at this. But that's the overall concept of our glue at this point. And no, it's not meant to replace that position. Back to your initial question. Any other questions, comments? I'll open it up to if anybody out there wants to say anything or has a comment. Okay. Do we want to take action, have them move forward with more, with a final and have this brought forward to our next meeting, or do we want to?
I added it for next agenda items that we can,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jamie.
that would give supervisors some time to read through it and provide comment.
Additional, okay. Thank you. And then maybe check too with the clerk treasurer's office, and you guys add what you need to there.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so then number 7, discussion and possible action, review the addition of an administrative support position in the general fund. There was 2 ways that we had talked about looking at this, and Jamie will go over it with you. As she stated, we looked at $22.50 an hour. Why don't you go ahead, Jamie?
Probably the easiest way to demonstrate it is actually to move to the general budget, and then there's a salary worksheet behind the general budget.
Do you want to start with zoning, maybe?
We can start with
Why don't
zoning.
we start with zoning, that'll make it a little,
This is gonna lead into the next agenda item, Madam Chair, so maybe we should just read number 8 then too, because they all kind of dovetail together.
okay. Number 8, discussion and possible action, specific 2024 budgets being reviewed, general zoning, police, fire, highway, library, buildings and grounds, parks and recreation.
So if we start with zoning, we had the preliminary discussion when we were talking about the hybrid model and the glue piece. we went back to the zoning budget with this position, and again, we did a 50-50 split. Maybe in the future it ends up being 70-30 or 60-40, but we thought as a good place to start, we would go 50-50. So you're gonna reflect now that there is some property tax in zoning, because if we go 50-50, we did 1,040 hours in zoning, 1,040 hours in general, half of a family insurance plan in zoning and half in general. We always budget for family when we are doing a fresh recruitment, because we don't know where the selections are, so it might end up being less than that, but we always budget for family. Then you're gonna reflect a $0 amount in the full-time, but in the part-time, you're gonna have the zoning administrative support position, the 1,040, and the admin assistant at 800. Again, that was in there previously. That's already the assistance that Linda is helping to provide with the plan commission packets and items, so administrative support items. So that leads to all the other numbers are the same as you saw last week. And then I provided just the breakdown of those wages and insurance on that salary worksheet, so you could see how we got to that 23,400 and the 14,550 into the budget. And that leads to have a $8,224 levy need in zoning.
Well, now you'd be able to take Linda out of there, though, that 800 out.
No, Linda would still do like the mailing piece. Like she searches who's up 200 feet from properties and puts together that list, develops those letters and mail those out. So she would still be a part of that. She does the dictation of the minutes, like for plan commission. She would still provide those support positions. Especially if the other person was 50-50, she would still assist with those items. And again, maybe coming into it, at some point it would transition, if it was found that it could transition. But I would feel more comfortable having them in there. The other piece is Linda could show this person how to do those pieces too.
True. Train, all right, but you're also allowing then for the short-term rental piece for that as well? Because that would be this glue that holds that all together.
So the short-term rental piece is gonna come to this person after the CSO has taken them through the first part. So it's just that conditional use permit that will come to this. So you get a new short-term rental packet. Linda's gonna make the label for the folder. She's gonna give it to the CSO. The CSO is gonna take them through, did their paperwork get turned in correctly, and setting up their inspections. And then once their inspections are approved, the folder will come back to this individual, this glue piece, on getting the CUP to the plan commission agenda. But what Linda's gonna do, so this glue piece is writing the agenda item, they're developing the agenda. Linda's taking the address and she's measuring 200 feet off that property, and she's providing a notice letter to those individuals within 200 feet with a copy of the agenda to say that it's on the meeting.
You mentioned the 50-50 split for the insurance, I guess, for family insurance. What about Medicare and Social Security and pension contributions?
It's a 50-50 split because we did 1,040 hours in one and 1,040 in the other. And again, if we would ask this individual to kind of keep track of hours, even if it was generally through this year, we could determine if it really is 50-50 or if it's another split, a different determination.
That's a good question. So this job is described, I think it would be very difficult to find someone to do that job for $22.50 an hour. Is that, how did you come up with that amount, that you think that would be enough for something that has this much work involved to it?
We do know somewhat comparables of around us of some administrative positions, and then taking into account our salary ranges. 2250 is where the deputy clerk treasurer would have previously been. So we have some administrative support positions that are lower than that, and we have some that are higher than that, depending on the role that they fill. But we thought that was somewhat of a middle ground. Again, because and maybe that needs to be more reflected in the position description, but this person is really that person that's assisting, not the person that's making the end determination.
Okay.
Do we just wanna walk through general then quick too? So, I know that we've talked about this in the past, but there isn't any levy in our general fund. We have been able through either departmental savings or savings within the general budget to provide that prior year carry forward in order to fund general. So, when you look at the top of the general budget, that unassigned prior revenue is just your projected year-end revenues minus your expenditures. You're gonna get the 1.665. So that number might change slightly because that's not taking into account each individual department savings. Not all departments this year will have savings. Highway will not have savings. But that's just your general fund, and you do have enough balance that you would not need levy in general. So walking down the rest of your revenues, we always do flat amount for MFL because that's a very variable amount. We don't know what that will be year to year. Your 125 is your utility payment in lieu from the water utility. Our shared revenue, you can see there is, we have that nice increase from about $40,000 to $122,000. And our other big item in revenues is what we bring in for licenses. That's short-term rental licenses, liquor licenses, cigar licenses. That's all the licenses that we sell here out of the town is the 65. So we're in the general fund. That's your $2,050,000.
On administrator health, you have an increase of 291%?
Yes, so let's go to expenses, okay?
Okay, sorry, jumped ahead here a
Yep.
bit, but I'm,
Legislative board, we did budget flat. That is part of the meeting that we will have, the budget hearing and the town meeting. We set the salaries for the positions that are coming up next year, which there are 3 next year that will come up. That's when we determine that, but we did leave it flat at this point. But if there is a change, it would have to be adjusted there at that meeting. The other items you can see are fairly level from last year. You do represent the 5% increase for the judicial clerk position. And I did 5% increases in our legal, both for court and for general. On the administrator position, you have to refer to, behind the general is the salary worksheet, because I put in that administrator position, both the town administrator and the admin assistant with the 50, and for next year, we budgeted for family, cause we don't know for both. So this sheet's gonna give you the breakdown of how we got to the numbers under the administrative piece.
now we do show that the zoning budget went down almost 50%. So if need be, and we decide to change that, it could always all go back in the zoning budget, correct?
You would
Even-
have to put a other levy in the zoning budget depending on
Correct,
how,
to
yes.
offset it,
Yeah. Again, there's no levy in your general right now.
right.
But that's why you're seeing that increase in wage and in health insurance, because it's now a position and a half is budgeted there.
And although we talked about not getting, at this point, we have not decided on an administrative position before, right now, at this point in time, is that the full, at what point do we decide how much we'd want to set aside for that person? Whoever that might be.
And certainly in a recruitment, if you did a range, I think that's what GovHR would recommend, is that you do a range based on the person's experience, but that's, the number that you see represented in the budget is my current salary with the 5%. So it would allow you though to still provide a range. But the admin dues, training mileage was left flat. You're gonna see a decrease in general office operations, cause last year we budgeted for the strategic plan, which we wouldn't have that cost next year, so there is a decrease there. The rest of the items, you're gonna see a large increase in elections. This year we only had the 2, next year we have the 4 and the presidential, so you're gonna see the increase in the elections cost and training. Clerk treasurer includes both the clerk treasurer and the deputy clerk treasurer, and then there's some 90 hours of additional administrative support there. That has been Linda, so I also don't wanna represent the items here. That's not the glue piece that we're talking, that's our existing staff.
Where do you put, you have 90 hours for Linda there?
Yep, and that's really receipting taxes. She receipts the taxes annually that come in the mail. Your audit costs have continued to go up, we did represent for our actual cost for this year. Your assessor though will go down because you paid for the interim market reevaluation. The big item that you're gonna see on this last page is the other general government. Other general government, because we have to present a balanced budget in general, is where the difference comes from. So you have more revenues than you have expenses, and in order to provide a balanced budget, what that difference is goes there. And it will have an increase. There is an increase there. You could also consider that last year, that's where we took items like the mailing for the wake manipulation device survey. It's also when we've done these special assessments for paving, where we've taken that paving cost, knowing we're gonna get those funds returned to us over the next 7 to 10 years. I also represented a slight increase in the CDA for next year. Really where you're gonna see that is in the continuation of our beautification projects and signage. I increased that amount. In the community room, we were asked to bring back a budget that more accurately reflected what the cost of getting that community room upgraded based on our estimates, so you're gonna see that $200,000 in order to complete that renovation to the community room. So that would be all of the general. That sort of helps to explain how that position falls into both budgets.
I have a question under CDA operations. If we go down to the senior housing planning project, we bumped that number down for senior housing and planning. You're estimating that if we were to put out a request for proposals on senior housing?
Yep, or if maybe you wanted to work with someone like Veer Becker to assist with putting that out, or to review proposals that did come back in.
Okay, and then you have under the beautification, project funds and signage, down to 15,000. Right now we have at year end 35,000, so that should be the 20,000 that came in from the Vibrant Spaces grant?
No, there's no Vibrant Spaces in there. Vibrant Spaces is in RTC for the sign, and the rest is in parks. 35,000 reflects the agreement that we signed for the mural. That reflects that agreement.
That's purely
cost.
the mural, okay, you said,
That's purely the
okay.
mural. 15 is just to keep the beautification projects, that momentum going. I just picked 15 because that was half of the cost of the projects were that we did this year.
Okay, so where's the signage money that we had originally budgeted last year for?
It's in Rome Town Center. There's 20,000
Okay.
in Rome Town Center, and 10 of that will be offset by the
Vibrant Spaces.
and the end result of that wrapping is 22.5. Yep, 22.5. Which should still be completed this year. Yep.
Oh, yay. Today he said he signed
No,
it?
he signed it today.
Signed it, oh,
Yeah.
okay. So that 10,000 from Vibrant Spaces, and then we've got that other 20,000 still in the Rome Town Center budget. Okay,
There is 20,000 in there. It will, and that net will cost us the 1250, 12,500.
okay. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Jamie, could you give us a little more information on that $200,000 item for the community room?
Sure. That would be new floor, which is about $55,000. The remodeling of the kitchen, which is gonna be around $80,000, because when we had the conversation prior, there were some items that were gonna be reused, and it was felt like we were gonna invest the funds that we likely didn't wanna reuse the sinks and items that are in there. And painting, and then upgrading the technology, so we could have some more multimedia in there and better sound quality for larger meetings.
How much was it for the floor, please?
55,000,
Okay, and then you said how much for painting?
I don't have a
How much for
Well, take
technology?
55, 85, add it together and subtract it from 2, and that's what you get.
I was
technology-
trying to zero in on technology, because I
Well-
think that's the greatest need.
technology will probably be between 20 and 30,000. And that would include some electrical work, because that room needs some electrical work.
Because we originally had money budgeted to have that floor done this year and to have the lighting replaced. The lighting on the ceiling was supposed to be replaced too, because we budgeted for that. I have trouble spending $200,000 on that room. But I do know that the technology needs to be replaced. I can't see putting $200,000 out there to upgrade that kitchen and that floor and everything else. But I do see the need for the technology. And what's the 25,000 for other? You probably said it and I missed it. I'm sorry if I did.
25,000 for others is when stuff happens.
Stuff happens. Understand stuff happening, but I have troubles with the $200,000.
Well, I mean, if it is supposed to be our showcase community room that lots of different groups use, you know, having a nice floor in there, could make an aesthetic improvement in it. Now, is that necessarily the best use of money in this financial times? I don't know, but I do think it would make a positive impression. How many different groups use that room throughout the year?
Dozens, and it's not community groups. We host a lot of funerals and birthday parties and family reunions. So, I mean, it also serves that purpose.
Do you know how
Bands
many?
and church groups.
You know how many well, there's a lot of other active type events that do take place in there too, and we just had epoxy put on that floor,
Waxed. We had it
or
waxed.
wax, okay. So, I mean, do you know a number of how many groups actually have had music or parties or funerals in there? Do we have an idea of that?
I couldn't give you a number without looking back on past reservations, but it's booked on a weekly basis by several groups. I mean,
I think the
There's-
other improvements are needed. I don't think the floors necessarily needs an upgrade. It doesn't look that bad really right now.
It does have a fairly large hump in the middle of it,
It's had a hump there forever though,
which
right?
is cracking, which is breaking it apart. I mean, the floor is from 1975. It's held its own.
Could it wait one more year? Possibly. Could it wait one more year? I think it might be able to. I mean, maybe a coat of paint, cans of paint are relatively reasonable. I think the electronics, it does present an image. People do use the room, but it does get room in a lot of,
The kitchen is what's needed most, I think.
This is the kitchen and the general community floor. Could the kitchen, is that in worse shape than the general floor? Is it all the same floor,
It's
same
in
age?
worse
same-
shape now because of the remodel piece that we had to do, because
So-
a piece of it got ripped up.
If you were to leave the general floor and just keep it clean, realize there's a cracking hump, you know, not great, but still. And just take care of the kitchen and do the kitchen remodel and the sound system, what would that look like? Would that be a significant
It looks like about 110.
reduction. I mean, it's 55,000 for the floor, including the kitchen. So if you just do the kitchen, that's,
I would say the kitchen is all of 80 from our previous estimates.
135.
And I would say the technology, to be safe, is probably 30 because it hasn't gone down in cost.
And what about the lighting? Is that included in that 30 or probably not?
I don't think so.
And throw in a couple of cans of paint, so if we say $110,000 for the kitchen and the,
165. I think it would be more than a couple of cans of paint. So you're painting the entire room? Because you're not painting an epoxy floor.
how'd you get to 165? I'm sorry. If you take the kitchen at 80 and the electrical at 30,
Floor, the kitchen
If the-
floor was 80.
The remodeling of the kitchen is 85.
oh, 80, oh, I wrote down 80, I'm sorry. That was-
85. The upgrade for, I thought it was lights and technology, was 30.
What, we talking just the lights in the kitchen or the lights in the whole room?
Well, lights in the kitchen, I'm assuming, would be in that 85,000 remodeling kitchen
I don't
price.
think we replaced,
We never have a price on the lights.
no, ceiling, but not lights, not light replacement.
We'll just say 85 for the kitchen then.
That's, I guess I need an itemization of what this means, because I can't get a handle on, it's moving around on me this afternoon. I need an itemized list of what that 200,000 comes out to be, and what is lighting, what is technology, what is the floor. I want an itemized list before I vote on this.
Could we have an itemized list then of what the board would like to do next year? Cause I'm not, does lighting include all of the room or just the kitchen? Does it include
I
all of
guess I
the floor
thought
or
you,
just the kitchen?
you're telling us what you're doing. I thought.
Well, and that would, what my number represents would be the entire room. The room and the
200,000
kitchen,
for the kitchen and
the community
the
room.
floor in the community room. And it includes everything,
Yes, this would be,
lighting, technology, but when I start adding it together, I come out with more than 200,000. That's the problem.
And
When
previously,
you
the,
start talking, you give me more numbers than you've given me for 200,000, when you start dividing it up.
previously, the community room remodel, including the lighting upgrade in 22 was 75,000, but if I remember that number correctly, that was just for the floor with markings in it, and then we added the lighting to it, and I don't remember what the additional cost was for lighting. So then the 23 budget was 50,000, but I know that because there was a bathroom issue, it destroyed part of the kitchen. So the 200,000, now we're trying to break this down and really go after what we really need to do to make the room somewhat presentable when groups need to use it. And I think the kitchen use is the most important thing with the technology. So I think we all pretty much have a consensus there,
I don't-
correct?
I don't understand why you can't reuse stainless steel sinks and counters.
They're pretty bad shape, I think.
It's stainless steel, I don't know, how could it be in bad shape? It might be needs a deep cleaning or something like that, but,
Dented.
I think they're from the 70s yet, or?
everything is from the 70s.
Yeah. But I see your point, Bob. I mean, point taken, but if you've ever done dishes in there, I think you'll know.
I've done dishes in there a couple times, yes.
I know, I've done dishes in there a lot too, a lot of Veteran Day dinners and,
I guess to me, so instead of just continuing to try to figure this out, would it be asking too much to have a breakdown of it?
Yes,
and bring it
please.
back? And maybe, if possible, divide the kitchen and the main room floor? Sometimes you don't save much at all, you know, it's a small kitchen.
So,
Sounds
could we at
like
least,
we're all-
could we at least give her a number to plot in there for us and then
Yeah,
her
you're
come back
asking
with
for
a?
that.
Yeah, like, so I think 165 was kind of high, but do we have some kind of number to give her to, and then come back with some more specifics for us, please? Because you
Well,
do
I
need a number to keep moving
Well,
keep
I
us
think
moving
before-
forward.
If she gives us all the parts and pieces, we can subtract what we
Right.
don't want.
I think more
Oh.
important is the itemized list, what are we looking for? So we're saying
Okay.
kitchen floor, kitchen equipment, including counters,
Okay,
kitchen lighting, that'd be the kitchen side, correct?
Right.
Then community room floor, electrical, sound system, lighting, and paint. Did I miss anything?
I think you
No,
got
I
it
think we
covered.
covered it.
Yeah, I was gonna say electrical and the kitchen too, I'm gonna add.
I think you got it.
Think we got it.
Did I say kitchen lighting? Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Sound system technology.
Yeah, it sounds slash technology, whatever that means.
And I don't know that we have that one mural in there, and as we're waiting for our grant, and that, do we really wanna add another 15,000? You're saying for another mural project, 15,000?
Or other beautification project. I mean, it
Okay.
wouldn't have to look, it wouldn't have to be a mural, maybe it's something else.
Okay. Anything else on this particular budget, questions or comments? Have her come back with those numbers for us then?
Try to have those by next week.
Okay.
And that's the only missing piece on this one, just that one piece? We could hear that in about 5 minutes and
And approve that one.
and approve it.
Provided there was no other questions on general.
Oh, there won't be. No.
Did you have any other ones?
No.
Are we comfortable with zoning?
Yes. The only other, I did actually, sorry, I know, the judge's training went up 184%. That's quite a leap. I mean, the training has been right around like 2, 3, over the past couple of years, and now it's jumping up to $12,000 for training. Is there something special he needs training for this year that it's taken such a jump?
That's not just training, that's also, some additional,
Yeah, it's on
that's
expenses
a
for the,
typo.
Oh, okay.
The number got copied from below, it should be the same. Do the 45, that's a typo.
oh. Thank you.
I was looking at the number below for judicial operations, and that was for other, they wanna do an additional subscription potentially next year. The 45 should carry over, and the number just got transferred.
So then what would we be looking in the 2024 budget? It would be,
4,500. It's gonna just carry forward from what he had from 23.
but we're still over. I mean, he only spent 266116 this year. I mean, do we really need to spend, how much would that? Not to nickel and dime him to death, but if he's only spent 3, I mean, not even 3?
It's potential that not all trainings are offered every year, or that there's always the possibility that the municipal court clerk, that is also, that,
She'll need training. All right, so we'll leave it at 45. All right, fine. So we don't know what that percentage is. Oh,
it would be
But it'd be
zero.
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 oh yeah, 0, duh. Thank you. All righty.
Look at it.
So that was like $8,000 off. Just balance.
There's no levy in general, so no, you did not just bail.
It has no
I know.
effect.
Good catch, but no levy. Yeah. All right.
Almost.
Can I ask a general question? How do we determine what is paid for by property tax versus some other means?
I think just through board determination, that's, I mean, I think that's the piece of working through the budget.
Where's okay, if it's not coming from property tax, is it coming from the revenue side of the picture?
No.
Then where is it?
Some of it's from room tax.
No,
No.
so can you ask the question a different way, Bill?
I'm looking at the bottom line for, let's use the police department since they're first, and the bottom line for property tax says 1,233,000. But when you go to the police budget, it's much larger than that.
Yes. 'cause
So what's the
there's-
difference?
They're getting other revenues from, like, the boat
The
grant.
federal
They're-
grants that they
yes.
come in?
They're bringing in there's other revenue sources within police. And they're also taking some of their prior year revenue. Remember when we talked about that their property sales, we would let them carry forward, and insurance recoveries.
Okay. So it is generally, in all the cases, a revenue side that offsets the number? Or is it different for each one and we need to go through them and understand each one? Because I was looking for the way to figure it out and I just couldn't come up with it.
So, but this sheet would tell you how much of their budgets are property tax.
Right.
Yes.
How do you determine what that amount is? That's what I'm asking. Because it's not the same number as their total budget,
But their total budget would represent all of
All
their
of it.
revenues.
okay?
And in all cases, we present a balanced budget for each department.
So if I go and take a budget and subtract revenues, that'll tell me what is in the property tax side?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Like on the
that's what I'm
police-
asking.
Yeah, so like on the police, there's 1.27 million. And then, so those other numbers add up to about 47,000,
Right.
470.
But I was trying to come up with where that is and what it is,
But,
and I couldn't.
so let's just go back to zoning, because we were on that. So zoning has very little property tax.
Right,
8,000
because the revenues cover it.
Yes. So if out of the $205,000 budget, that's just those numbers, those revenues added up. And then your expenses are also the 205. And if you had a budget that wasn't balanced, then that would be the conversation we would be having of how do we make that work? Like we are $5,650 short.
Okay, the budget balances, I'm not arguing that, but on our worksheet, it shows that we have zoning property tax, $8,624.69. Where's that number coming from, if we have a balanced budget here? And the revenues offset the expenditures.
The revenue only offsets the expenditures if we add $8,624.69 to the revenues.
Yes.
See, if you look at the zoning revenue sheet,
I'm, yeah, 205,774.69.
including the $8,600 of property tax revenue.
Oh, okay, all right,
Without that, the budget would be off
Got
by
it.
$8,600.
I got it. Got it. That's what I was asking.
Okay. Everybody got what they need? Okay,
So it is revenues versus expenses plus,
plus that.
got it. Thank you.
Okay. Going back to zoning.
Oh, we're going back to zoning?
Well, we didn't take a motion on zoning, and there wasn't a motion previously, so just wondering about comfort level with zoning.
Back to zoning here.
I'll make a motion that we move the zoning budget as described,
As presented,
as presented,
okay.
which is the hybrid,
Includes the hybrid position.
correct?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Capel, a second by Supervisor Minter to accept the zoning department budget as presented, which includes the 50% of the hybrid position. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, and we wanted to have the general budget brought back to us with a
Yep.
build out of those numbers, or do we wanna?
No,
Okay.
we can bring that one back on the 5th.
All right,
I wanted to bring police back tonight, because we had found an error within our full-time, which is corrected on the budget that you see before you tonight. That error did result in some need for some additional levy, but
how did we go from the 1% up to the 4% for full-time wages? Cause the 1% is what we had before.
Yes, because we have a series of new officers, and per the agreement, when you start as a new officer, you start at 80%, and then you move to 90, 95, and 100%. So the 5% was figured in all of their wages, but it's we had to take the 5% and then the jump. So we went through it, back through it with a fine tooth comb and found that error. So it's corrected on this one. So the 4%, and which makes sense with the 5% wage increase. The 4% is correct on that.
How many officers do we have? Someone asked, I've been asked that twice this week, and I should know the answer, and I don't know the answer.
Is Chief back there?
These
He could-
officers,
So-
full-time and myself.
thank you.
Chief, did you have an opportunity to go through your wages like I had originally requested, or did everybody, the department heads, have a chance to go through their budgets and do their wages full and part-time?
The payroll department handles the wages and the benefits, and then they're inputted into the salary worksheets with the breakdowns that are provided, and then the department heads go through their budgets. So Chief actually asked, he's like, this seems a little low, you should just give it a double check, and we did, and found that error because of the new officers. So the payroll does the wages.
Thank you.
We've had one individual should handle those spreadsheets. But they do see the breakdowns on these sheets.
And the 7 officers includes the CSO officer, which enabled us to do the 2 boats for boat patrol, correct?
Correct, that's the total full-time officers. We have the 16,000 of part-time, that's strictly the seasonal
Boat patrol,
patrol that assists the CSO, because there's 2 people in the boat.
which now also handles the NUSIS code enforcement, which is part of,
Correct.
thank you. And then you yourself as a working police chief that also does all the equipment installment on the new cars and vehicles and IT?
Yeah, depending what it looks like next year.
Okay, thank you.
Other duties as
There's more
assigned.
information for you. Huh?
Other duties as assigned.
Other duties as assigned in all our job descriptions for every department head, right? Thank you, everybody, for all those other duties as assigned.
We did prior take a motion and a second on police. It's the board comfort level if they want to do that again. Otherwise, I just wanted to make sure that we updated the information that you had prior.
I would move that we accept the revised police department budget for 23-24, reflecting the corrected error in wages.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Supervisor Minter, a second by Supervisor Capel to accept the revised police department budget due to the error in the calculated wages. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
On to highway, on to fire. This is your second time with fire. We did make the change that was requested to take those SCBA's and moved those into your fire insurance dues.
Thank you.
So you're gonna see that then your carry forward for fire insurance dues is decreased at 11,520. And I had my side note here, I'm glad that we'll bring back general. Chief Kane did get updated numbers on the cost for those SCBA's, and it will be more than the 11,250 for next year. It will actually be $24,933.
What was the number again, please?
$24,933.
For how many of them?
That's 3 SCBA's and 6 bottles, 2 bottles per pack. Did I get that right, Chief?
Correct.
So, in the past, we have shared some of that SCBA cost in the general into the general capital outlay. We did that 2 years in a row just to keep on a replacement schedule. We can still keep the $11,520 in fire, and then if we would be comfortable with this budget, that would keep the levy where it would be at, and we could put that other 13,000 in general capital if we so desired, or we would extend the SCBA replacement out one additional year.
Since the chief is here, could we get an explanation as to why the ATV can't be fixed and needs to be replaced for 48,000?
Just a minute, could you come up, chief, but in the meantime Supervisor Bauerheit, could we just follow up on the SCBA's while we're on that subject
Oh,
first,
fine, yeah.
please? How many do we have total now that are working and compliant, and then how many first now, and then how many will this bring us to when we buy these?
I think this will complete us to 16, which will be our complete cycle.
So if
We
we,
eliminated 8 off of our previous number by streamlining our system.
so then we'll have 16 by the time we buy these.
Correct.
And those are not shareable, correct?
Those are the SCBA units are shareable.
The units are shareable, but the masks
The
are
masks
not.
are individually issued.
So you have 16 units, but everybody gets their own masks.
Correct.
And how many of these units do you use at a time?
We need NFPA regulations state that every seat position in a vehicle needs to have that SCBA. So there are 5 on our frontline engine, the 4 on our second line engine, and then we have 2 on our rapid response vehicle,
Oh, okay.
and 2 into each tender, for a total of 6, making that. I think that should make our numbers work.
Yeah, that comes to 15.
The chief.
Then
Instead of 15.
there's one more into the second line engine.
Second line engine,
So
so that'd be,
55222.
Correct.
okay, so that's that'll give you 16 then. So, all right,
Why'd they double in price? Just,
I pulled the wrong invoice. I supplied Jamie with bad numbers.
okay. How much do we have in insurance?
how long, so now once we have these all done, now this is, next year will be the 3rd year of the cycle of replacing these, right?
Correct.
And in how long, so now from those ones that'll now be 3 years old next year, when will they be needing to be replaced?
It'll be 12 to 15 years out.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
So it's just mass that would need to be replaced as we have new people or
Correct.
change staff, okay.
And the solution is to split it 50/50? Fire insurance and general fund?
It wouldn't be quite 50/50, because it would be 13,800, or 13,600 into general.
And we don't have enough in operations or outlay to cover some more of that.
The UTV costs 48,000.
I know.
Well, I mean, it needs, we don't have a choice. It needs to be
Yeah,
done.
we need them, but
You know,
I was
this
just
is
wondering,
one of those things that needs to be done.
yeah,
And
okay.
it's obviously a safety issue for the firemen.
Right.
Or firefighters, I should say.
And if they sit unused, chief, I mean, they sit there, they're fine, right? They don't expire if they're not used, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
You have some machine in that refills the bottles then after use, that can,
We have a high pressure
Back to your
air compressor
question.
system that's located in building 3. That's what we use to refill the bottles on a regular basis.
All right, and then we'll go back to Supervisor Bauerheit's question.
The ATV, can it be repaired?
The parts are unavailable. That UTV is currently 20+ years old. And we were unable to source parts to be able to replace it.
Can't we just replace the whole rear end in it and just connect up a drive shaft to it?
I was told by the experts, being the Polaris dealer, that parts were unavailable for it. I feel if there was any options, they would have gave us that option. That and then even if we start piecemealing a 20-year-old piece of equipment that was custom built to begin with, what's our reliability factor? And do we want to have that? Do we want to have a breakdown when we're trying to get into a fire that's located in a remote spot that we would use that for?
It just seems like a lot of money, and I was also wondering last time we met, is there pieces off of that existing ATV that we have that can be transferred over to the new one?
We would be transferring the entire fire water tank and pump system into the new one.
You would?
Yes.
Okay,
So
thank you.
that price that we have in the budget includes the the UTV unit plus the fab work to adapt the existing tank and pump unit into that unit.
So, but we would be buying a standard ATV this time that we could find
Correct.
parts for and replace?
Correct. It would, specifically, if the budget would go through that, it's a Polaris XD 1500 with a 5,000 pound GVW rating, which more than covers the weight. We covered by about 700 pounds of weight capacity that we didn't have before.
So I wondered how often that piece of equipment goes out. I mean, you need to have it when you need to have it, but how often did it maybe go out last year?
Well, we've been broke down for a good chunk of this
Okay.
year. But this year's wildfires, I think we ran about 12 calls for wildfire this year. And it comes out with us every time we go.
Okay. And if we didn't have one and we needed to share one with some other municipality, is that even possible?
We would call for mutual aid, which we often do anyway. Just because of the number of people that we get on a daytime response, nighttime response, depending on, what time of day or week that call comes in. But that would have us waiting for one to come from either Big Flats or Nakusa, being our closest ones. And then that's again subject to availability.
And has it ever been discussed with another municipality to share one?
No.
So is this a vehicle that's just for firefighting, or is it also for rescues?
This particular skid unit that we have that would go into the new one does have the potential to does have the capability to transport a patient. And it's what we use solely for transporting patients before we had the donation of the rescue skid from the Snowmobile Club a few years ago. And when we do transport patients with that one, we have to drain all the water out of it.
Oh,
So
see.
it carries 150 gallons of water. When we add a patient
Yeah.
and one or two people to take care of that patient, we're way over our weight capacity.
got it.
And we had it out on Derek Use on the motocross track one time. I happened to be one of them that was taking care of the patient. It was not a fun ride out of there.
No, understood. Thank you. Any other questions for the chief? Are there any other sources of funds that might be available to help offset the costs?
We applied for a DNR grant to offset $10,000 of that this year, and it was not funded.
Okay. Thank you for your efforts in trying. All right, any other questions or comments for the chief's budget, the fire chief's budget? Did you have any?
Lifespan for that UTV would be 20 to 25 years.
Don't go over any logs.
I won't be here.
All right. Do we have
Never say never.
I never seen.
Guaranteed.
Well, you can't, don't guarantee either if you're trying to run away from a fire, right? Okay. Do we have any motions or,
I move that we approve the fire department budget as presented.
I'll second.
okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Bauer Height, a second by Supervisor Cole to approve the fire department budget as presented. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to highway.
So in your packet was information that was provided from Ellers. And then at your seats tonight was some updated information that will reflect an option 1 and an option 2. Let's just refer to the option 1 and the option 2, because that includes what's in the packet, the information that was provided in your packet. On the balancing the budget with the levy, the decrease that occurred was in that highway department number based off of the road projects that we talked about that we would wanna fund and take for borrow. With utilizing proceeds from borrowing, that decreases the amount of levy that's needed in highway, which gets us to the very close number that we're at tonight. The chairwoman also asked that we would do some estimates and provide some additional options for borrowing for 2 additional roads. So the information that you have from Ellers with the option 1 and the option 2, your table 1 is your existing debt, that's what we have on the books today, including the loan that we just took. Your table 2 would have option 1 that would, from your road improvement plan that was in your packet, do a $1.1 million borrow for Akron Drive and Rapids Trail. And also, then in the budget is included your 219,250 for those other maintenance items. The piece about the ARIP is not in the budget, right? Because we would apply, we wouldn't be able to do that work until the next year. But your 2024 road budget then would reflect a $1.1 million borrow, those additional road projects at the 219, and the application for ARIP. That's option 1 in the finance plan from Ellers. Option 2 would include an additional $530,000 for Apache from 10th to County Road Z, and $450,000 for Archer from 15th to Z. Those
You mean
are the,
Apache from, sorry to interrupt you, but you mean Apache to 10th to Highway 13, not Z.
oh, sorry. to
That's
Z,
okay,
13.
you said Z.
So that's that option 2. So 4 roads in option 2, 2 roads in option 1. Everybody with me?
Give me
So-
the second option again, 2 roads.
Mud.
Would be the 2 roads in the
It's fine.
2024 plan, plus Apache from 10th to 13th,
Okay,
and Archer from 15th to Z.
That's to get, the purpose in that request was to simply show us that if we would get Apache all the way done and Archer all the way done, which Archer is really bad because it floods horribly. Well, Brad can speak to this, but as long as we're doing the culvert, we get Apache all the way done, we get Archer all the way done, which you saw it, and it's gotten worse over the summer. Then we have 2 major roads that are completely done. I wanted to see what those numbers would be, and we'd have an intelligent discussion about it, and just see where those numbers would fall. Because after we do this and get our major roads done, east, west in the town, after this, I personally don't wanna see us do any more borrow for roads. And then we get on a regular cycle for our regular maintenance, as we discussed at our special road meeting.
So
What
then-
about Akron from 13 to Z?
She's got that in here.
That was, you're talking Archer.
No, Akron from County Road Z to 13, 2.5 miles would be,
it's in there.
yep.
It's in
Is
there.
But we
in
would
there.
still have Archer to do at some point in time, though.
Wait, you lost me.
Is Archer in this improved option 2 now?
Archer from 15th to Z
Okay.
would be in that option 2 borrow.
And Apache.
And Apache from 10th to 13.
And Akron? Where's that at?
Akron from 13, from Z to 13.
Akron's in the original option.
Okay.
Oh, sorry,
And
Brad, yeah.
Rapids Trail from
It's a-
15th to Blue Waters Trail. So option 1, 2 roads, option 2, 4 roads.
Can you just remind us, till I find my paper, because we have so many of them, the piece of Rapids Trail? How much was the piece for Rapids Trail again?
478,000.
Yeah, see, that's a half, yeah. Yeah, thank you. There was one with red on it, though. We got a new one with red. See, so those major pieces, like Supervisor Minter commented at our last meeting, when those roads are getting up to a place where we leverage what we have to borrow for long-term improvements. So those were in the original piece, Bob.
Yeah, I get it.
And then we finish our other major roads going east-west, and they're done. I did have a request, though, Brad. Wake up. I'm just kidding. That, you can laugh, it's okay. This is an extra meeting. It's okay to laugh in the extra one. Eagle
But not
Trail
in the
in
regular
Woodbridge.
one? Just
Huh?
up there.
Eagle Trail in Woodbridge, put it on your list of check them after winter, please, because they're really bad. Got a couple of calls and comments. Thank you. Eagle Trail in Woodbridge. Thank you.
Well, actually, I don't think Woodbridge is any worse than Manchester. Why don't you wait and defer and do them both at the same time in another year?
I could take phone calls every day if someone calls saying it's a bad road.
For sure.
But these are like this, but I know. After winter, we'll even help you.
Apache Circle is probably worse than the other two, those two.
Yeah, but they just got out and did a whole bunch of,
Patching.
yeah. So,
So have you,
anyway, so
Made it a
back
lot
to the
better?
borrowing.
good.
What did you say, good?
He's made it a lot better then with the patching that he's done just recently?
On Apache Circle, yes.
They went and masked it.
Yeah, they mastic the whole,
Right, but I mean, it was pretty bad, so I didn't,
It improved it quite a bit, yes.
great.
all right, so back to the borrowing.
So then we go to,
Better finish explain, thank you.
yep, table 3 and 4 is option 1, table 5 and 6 is option 2. What table 3 and 5 represent for option 1 and 2 is just what that levy portion is of the principal and interest for the loan. And then table 5 and 6 represent how that influences our current debt, adding to it that debt service amount, how it would come out as the total tax rate for just debt service, what that would mean for an annual tax on a $300,000 home, and the impact on 2024 financing only. I would note that Ellers did use a conservative interest rate in these. The interest rate that he used was 4.25. Our current borrow that we just completed was in the 3% range, 3.29, excuse me, 3.29. So the Fed has said they're gonna raise the interest rates again before the end of the year. By the time the borrow would happen, I mean, they used a rate that they felt they could honor. But really just referring to table 4 and 6, cause I think that really shows the impact of what it would mean if you borrowed the funds. 2024, obviously, if the debt service levy is gonna stay the same. Then in 2025, you could see the increase on table 4 to the 513. You'd be adding, from 533 to 613. Your debt service rate is the 43 cents, that's $130. Inverse, if you go to table 6, in 2025, you go from the 533 to 677, you go up to 48 cents, from 43 cents and 143 is what that portion of the debt service levy is of the tax rate. So you do have, which is the last page, you do have the capacity, certainly, to take the borrow for the max amount. I would just note, while both options are doable, you will have to give more levy than to highway next year, right? Because they have to pay for that loan. These would all go back to, these would be proceeds that would go into highway and expenses that would come out of highway. So while you see that decrease in levy this year, you would see a pretty substantial increase in levy next year. If you have 4% growth, you know that's about $145,000, right? Then you still have to, so it's those, not that we've had the conversation, it makes sense, the road lasts for 20 years, you spread out the payments for it for longer than just next year, but you just have to be prepared, then highway gets that bigger increase next year.
Jamie, what is the last column here where it says impact of 2024 financing only?
I think that's just the increase, so you would be going from the 132 to 1 to,
Okay.
it's
All
just,
right.
he's just doing the difference on what's that,
I get it.
That's, yeah, the overall impact to a homeowner with annual taxes on a $300,000 home. So they're saying the overall impact of the financing as it climbs each year, so total overall, the person's paying $405, right, for the road improvements.
More than what we pay, more than what they're currently paying on debt service.
Debt service.
Yes.
Which if you work it out over 10 years is $40 per year to get 4 major roads done.
Yes.
It does.
Above and beyond what we're paying now.
We are putting this early into our debt schedule. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I mean, it's going in earlier into the debt schedule than what we had previously anticipated, but, I feel like as long as you're prepared that we adjust how that levy is allocated, it could be achievable.
Did they-
Allocated next year. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
No,
Jackie,
that's
go
all right.
ahead.
Did they take into account the TIF funds that will be coming? Is that why this decreases in 2027, or was that taken into account at all?
I don't believe that it was because I don't, we'd have to ask Greg just to be sure, but I don't believe that it would be. I think he would have taken it as just as our percentage of debt service, because debt service is outside the levy limit. You take debt service off of your levy amount, so the TID wouldn't matter.
Okay.
That's a very good question. It's a good point, because you see the number decrease, but I think what we learned last time, though, too, is gonna take another extra year possibly for that to be paid early. So,
And then Jamie or Brad, do we have a feeling that our suppliers have the capacity to do these extra roads for us next year in whatever other schedule they might have to? Probably don't know for sure, but
Don't know, I mean, it's kind of early. The only question is, we still have to get that design done for Apache Avenue. So I'd be very hard pressed to get that done. If it would get done, it'd be late next fall.
the paving,
Yes.
okay.
what do you think would be the holdup with trying to get it done, though? I mean, if you have everything in place that you need now, Brad?
Because remember, they're gonna come back with 2 design options. They have to have some public information meetings, to decide, how we want the bike trail to look. So all that needs to get done before they can put a final design together. Which is also why it's very difficult to even put an estimate together on this, because we really don't know for sure what the board's gonna choose.
But if we go with the borrowing option and we borrow the money, and let's say the design isn't done in time to get Apache paved by fall of 2024, the money would just sit in the road budget, capital budget, and then could be used in spring of '25 when the design was finalized.
Do we have an estimate of how many people actually, because we've had this discussion before, even going back all the way to my very first meeting in April, especially with the culvert and that. Do we have an idea of how many people actually bike on that road, considering the high speed and the amount of traffic we have? Did we ever get that with the original study that was done with Jewel and the Links to Lakes project? Was any of that information gathered?
I don't believe that Jewel did a pedestrian count on that road, so I don't know that we could provide a firm number, just on an anecdotal level, because the lane is there, it tends to be where people walk, and it's the only connector,
Yeah, I see
so,
more walkers than I do bikers there.
yeah.
And how much space, or what's the length, I should say? What's the length that we're actually talking about, from where to where again, that this lane would be?
It'd be from 10th Avenue to West Queensway.
So it's more for walkers than even bikers, you're
Queens-
saying? You see
Queensway.
more walkers than bikers. So I guess the concern is, are we gonna hold up a project I guess we would wanna encourage whoever to go through the design steps as quickly as possible, but are we gonna hold up a road project for?
It kind of also folds in with the Link to Lakes project too. If we ever get that going, the thought was that we needed to have a bike path. The original thought was that we'd have a separate bike path, probably on the south side of Apache, but I don't think that's gonna be realistic with all the right-of-way access grants you'd have to have. So it makes sense to continue the existing bike path that we currently have and just move it from 10th Avenue to West Queensway.
I understand. It's just the concern of keep holding it. I understand. We'll move forward with that because we did vote on that. And so it's just keep holding up
The
a
other thing
road
I-
improvement project.
The other thing I
That's-
don't understand is why are we talking about two options on the bike path? I mean, we want to have a bike path that's basically the same as we have now, so why is there another?
One option is to have more impact onto property owners versus the second option.
Yeah, my understanding was there was, no matter which choice we go, there's gonna be some acquisition. It's not all
The
on
road
land.
right-of-way extends from the center of the road, what, 35 feet,
33.
33 feet? That doesn't cover the bike path?
Some of the areas that get the sloping to match in, to get the grades and the water to go,
Hmm.
you're gonna have to do some temporary easements, some construction easements. That's why there's the designs coming through, because there might be some curb and gutter might have to go in areas to help blend
Okay.
in and match in.
And didn't Jewel already run into some of that already when they did the designs for the Link the Lakes project with
No,
the
'cause
acquisitions?
Jewel just did State Highway 13, they didn't do.
Oh, they didn't come all
They
the
didn't
way
come
down that
around.
far, just around that corner.
They did estimates of what it would mean to come around that corner, but they didn't
Didn't go
down
that far. But if there is concerns already that there might be an acquisition issue, it's just, my concern is not getting the road done. I mean, as long as we get the culvert in and we can get the road done, I think that's really key. But if there's still questions about an acquisition, I would hope that we know that really soon, Brad, so that we
I mean,
can
what are
just
we
keep it
talking
moving
about,
forward.
worst case, Brad? How many feet are we talking about on a given property that somebody might have to provide a temporary or a full-time?
It's too early
Access.
to tell, I guess that's what we need that design for, so they can start putting some cross-section together, see how it's gonna match in.
So I wouldn't think it'd be too many feet we're talking about on a given property, even if you're talking about on a hill or a valley.
All right, well,
We are resubmitting, or Visit Rome is resubmitting the Link the Lakes project to the state for grant purposes. DOT, and it doesn't make sense to me to be building a tunnel so that people can safely cross under Highway 13, then safely travel down Highway 13 where they can't get to it safely without a safe bike path. So,
If we
But
would borrow
that's
the
not what
money and couldn't pave next year, can we put that into a short-term note? Is that legal?
You know, I would have to ask, cause I'm not sure.
I'm kinda asking, but you may not know the answer off the top of your head.
I would defer to Ellers.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know we have done that when we've had grant funds, like we did it with the splash pad, cause we knew it was gonna
Right.
be a series of months.
But this is
But
borrowing for a
so I don't-
specific thing, and then you're not spending it, but you're not spending it because you're not ready to spend it. So the question becomes, can we do that, or should we not borrow it?
all the,
That's where I'm at.
well, I
You
can't
can't-
see,
You
I,
can't set it aside and guarantee that you're gonna pave.
but that's the same place we were at last, I see your point, but that's the same place we were at last year with
We
the
can
culvert and the
invest
bike
it,
path.
And if we can invest it, I have no problem going ahead. If we can't invest it, you have no guarantee that you're gonna be in a position to pay.
Well, then it would make sense to just get a short-term CD. But I can't see holding up a whole
Well,
entire
that's
road
investing,
project for a bike
But I'm not
path.
sure you can do that with
There's
borrowed
other
money.
ways to go,
I'm not sure you can do that with borrowed money. That's my question.
Yeah, I can ask Greg, we can get clarification on that.
yeah.
If you can do it, I have no problem. But if we can't, then
But
you
this
can't guarantee that
conversation's
you're
like
gonna use
deja
it.
vu with the Links to Lakes project. I mean, this goes back a whole year now again.
Well, worst case scenario, we could find another road to spend it on in 2023.
The other thing that I think would be problematic is that Ellers handles our investments, and I think somebody would throw up a red flag that Ellers helps us do the borrow and then invest the money. But I can
Yeah.
ask the question.
I think the question though
Is-
is one
is it-
that they can answer, which
Yeah.
is, can we borrow and
And
invest?
invest.
I'm
And
not
and it would be a
thinking that we can,
short-term
but I-
CD or something.
And if we
so
can invest, we'll probably have to find somebody other than Ellers to do the investing with, just for.
Yeah.
And if we can invest, we can
in-
always
you know,
put
as
in
far
our
as dis-
savings.
As far as our discussion here tonight goes, none of this borrowing is going to happen until we get the bids on the road and put them out, and hopefully by that time, perhaps the design will be done on the Apache piece, and then, you know, we may know all of it by March or April, so, you know,
I
I
would
don't
think
think so. I don't think so.
well, then
Unless
if we
you
don't know by March
more
or
than I
April,
do.
we
I
can
don't think
reduce
we're
the
gonna
amount
know
we
by
wanna borrow.
March or
you know,
April.
if we can't invest it. We can always reduce the amount we wanna borrow this year. If we don't think the Apache project's going to get done, and then turn around and do that in 25.
You can certainly do the bids for Akron and Rapids Trail and have those firm numbers back. You can do that early in the year, so you would know, and then maybe general engineering can give us, at that point in time, a better timeline of when their engineering might come back, but you certainly could know for Akron and Rapids. I mean, we could take
Couldn't
bids
know
for
for
that.
Archer, too.
And
January,
Archer.
And Archer.
And Archer too.
And Archer.
Too.
Yeah, I'm only questioning Apache. That's all I'm questioning. I don't have any problem with the others. I just don't think we're gonna be in a position unless we can invest it. Cause we can't just leave it sit there.
Well, and I think we need to encourage general engineering to just. Any other questions or comments? Any other thoughts?
Are we comfortable with taking a motion with the highway budget, knowing that there would be there would be borrowing next year, whether it was for 2 roads or 4 roads, that would yet to be determined, but the rest of the budget would be okay.
I'll move that we move forward, that we approve the highway department budget for 2024 as presented, and actively pursue borrowing option number 2 with the assumption that either all 4 roads can be completed, or we can invest the excess proceeds until Apache Avenue can be completed, or we reduce the borrow to eliminate the Apache Avenue project until it can be completed.
I'll second that.
I think I covered all the bases on that one.
Yep.
And I'm hoping you got all that, cause I don't know that I'm gonna be able to repeat all of that.
I don't know if I could repeat all that.
Well, I have a motion by Supervisor Minter and a second by Supervisor Bauerheit for accepting the road budget as presented with all the stipulations as,
Supervisor Minter outlined.
thank you. Very good verbiage. Thank you, Jamie. Oh, pursuant to option number 2 of the financing plan tax impact. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Okay. So,
Right.
library budget was reviewed by the library board on Friday and approved by the library board. It does have a small increase in property tax levy, but the library's been working hard about getting a capital plan put into place and would like to start making some investment into their capital outlay fund, because as the building ages, they wanna make sure that they have available funds to make those replacements. So, levy is the largest piece of revenue for the library. The other pieces are either their carry forward. Again, once levy is assigned to the library, it stays at the library. It's not one that cancels back to the general fund. And then their miscellaneous revenues, library donations. Reflect the 5% wage increase in the budget, and this year in the library budget, previously, most everything was into library operations. The utilities, book expenses, it just all came out of library operations. And this year with Nicole aboard, we broke that down, and she's put that into library supplies, library utilities, library books, periodicals. So it's broken down just with a little bit more detail on where those items are really going. And then you'll reflect their capital outlay does have that large increase. They're basically taking their savings and putting it in there for their future capital outlay needs.
And how much was that again?
40,000 is in their capital outlay.
So the net on the levy is approximately, where did that number go?
3%.
$10,000 extra ask on the levy for 2024. A couple of things about the library budget. The library staff, in consultation with the director, they did come up with a plan. We have a part-time person leaving here in the upcoming weeks. He was the person that had been the high school assistant. But they've determined that they'd like to proceed forward without replacing said position. They believe it can work. And just reallocate, so that was a savings in salary on there. And then there was a savings in the health insurance, because one of the employees doesn't need to take health insurance. Which is why we felt comfortable as a library board asking the town for the additional 10,000 in levy that we put all of our carryover into a capital budget. That furnace is around 25 years old, and the HVAC and the main part, the original part of the library, it could go at any moment in time, like anything.
Really?
We've also seen a significant increase in issues popping up this year, including pipes yesterday, so, our bills for maintenance have been.
I'll move the budget as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and we have a motion by Supervisor Capel, a second by Supervisor Minter to accept the library budget as presented. Any more discussion?
I have just a question about janitorial supplies. They went from $400 to $2,920. What's the explanation for that?
I believe that's because of the agreement with Cintas. Yeah, so there was a transition from just going to the store to purchase things when they were on sale to going to Cintas, an agreement where that item would be coming in and being delivered, and people would be watching to make sure it didn't run out. And so there is an additional cost to that, but really what you're just not seeing is there was a cost to having staff go out and do that and buy it and drive to town and come back, and now it's with a contract with Cintas.
Oh, $2,500 difference almost? Is that-
Well, last year's budget, some of that $2,900 was buried in some of these other line items.
I
Okay,
think that's what was happening.
The
And now we split it
400
out.
doesn't fully
Okay.
encapsulate all of the costs of the services.
okay. Just making sure it's not one of those kind of typo things or something, because it's a big increase.
It's hard to compare it because we broke it out a lot more, but I think moving forward, it will be then a lot easier to see where increases are or if they cut have to be made.
Yep. And there's probably some savings of scale a little bit on it, because Cintas is the same company that provides the janitorial
hear.
supplies and rugs and that for all the other buildings in the town.
Okay.
So it'll possibly look different to us next year then, because it'll be more comparable to what the rest of the buildings are, what they have going on as far as having that service delivered to them and, okay.
Yeah, and certainly when Cintas stops by, if items aren't needed, then Nicole would just tell them items are not needed and they're not charged for them.
Okay. Good question.
It should also save on some, like the rugs aren't replaced there, and so then Fran spends a lot of time cleaning the rugs and trying to maintain the rugs or buying new rugs, and this way with the agreement, they'll just have new rugs, so we're hoping it balances out,
So then in turn, are we saving costs with Fran?
potentially.
Yeah, okay, I see.
So is it kind of the same explanation under supplies, office/book? Because that is increased also.
Oh, I see where you're looking, okay.
Well, in 2023, supplies, office/books was $6,200. That's sort of up in the middle of the page. Then if you go down to, then office book, it says 64. So it went from 6,200 to 6,400.
Okay.
It's just gotten broken out from that
It
operation.
got moved to a
Yeah.
different spot on the spreadsheet.
So there's a need to increase it by $200. Okay.
Inflation rate.
I did notice though, you did leave utilities the same as, well, you only increased them a little bit, but, okay.
I did calculations based on increases in the past 3-4 years
Okay,
to figure out what next year's would be.
okay.
And I think you said Renee left pretty good notes on
Renee left a
utilities.
lot of notes
Yeah.
on it as well.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone have any more questions? Jackie, did you have any other that were standing out
Just
to you?
reading through
or-
it, so we had no electronic subscriptions before, and now we have $2,500 in electronic subscriptions.
That is something that was, grouped together with a line item from last year, but I broke it out so that we could see again
Okay.
where the money was being spent. It's part of it, we are getting one new electronic subscription, but the other piece of that was in the, IT contract with South Central Library System. So I'm pretty sure that's the one that changed.
So did
That's
that
why
get
yours
Oh, I
went
see.
down.
Okay.
Did our line get reduced at all?
Yes, so if you go down to in the middle of the page where it says library operations, in the middle of that same page, and then look down a little bit, Jackie. Contract with South Central. It looks like it's
Went
reduced then by that,
Down 2,000.
It actually went
yes.
down by 5,000 from what budget, because it actually went down, number
Okay.
one, and I broke it apart.
That's good that you're breaking those out, so it's for yourself even, not even so much, but that you can see even more so. But it does help us too with the budget, that we can see it versus it all lumped together into one.
So this year will be more confusing. Next year will hopefully be less confusing.
Well, I'm sure it's more helpful to your board too, to see it that way, making decisions.
And I worked with Melissa to help me set up the new budget line, so
Oh,
kudos to her.
got good practice, both of you, huh? Okay. Any other questions or comments or any, all right. Entertain a motion then?
We have a
Oh, we
motion and a
did.
second on
Oh,
that.
that was discussion already. I'm sorry. Thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Gotta forget where you are when you start having more discussion, right? Alrighty then, building and grounds. I asked that this one actually come back. I asked Jamie to bring it back for us, cause I had a question on one of the items here after attending the EMS meeting as a commissioner, and I had a question regarding the item that we had in here, for Fire Station 2, the parking lot improvements, because we had a report by Travis, who is the head of our ambulance service here in the town of Rome. And he was able to answer some questions for me regarding the helicopter service, which I was the one that had actually advocated that we leave some money in there for that replacement of the parking lot. And then we talked about the removal of the tanks. And was one question for Jamie, that 82.5 included the removal of the tanks, correct?
Yes.
So my question to Travis during the EMS meeting was, how many times have we had helicopters actually land for emergency services in the town? Chief wasn't with us that evening, but I had asked how many times, and then it was explained to me that when there is emergencies such as that, helicopters are usually, their preference is to be landed at the scene, especially if it's a very critical one, or on a flat surface, or, here, or at the airport, depending on the amount of transportation time and where the ambulance is coming from. I don't know, Jamie, if you wanted to add anything to that he responded, but so that was my question to him, and if we might wanna delay this particular expense until next year. I know Jamie was, had numbers in here for us to replace the facade on that building as well. I know some people, I took a ride to look at that parking lot already. It is in bad shape, but I don't know how important it is that we do land helicopters there, cause they do have alternate options. I mean, the road has been redone, so that if worst case scenario, they could land it on the road. They could shut down other sections, they could land it here, or they could land it at the hospital. But that was just something I wanted to bring back for discussion. So that's money that could be saved out of this budget, cause this budget is still, buildings and grounds is still 71% old, higher than most. But I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments, or if Jamie wanted to add anything. It didn't include any of the facade though, cause that we had left out, or if there's anything else in this particular budget that anybody had questions on.
That's 75,000 for the parking lot and 7,500 just to get those tanks removed.
It might be that if we're borrowing, that money and we can't do, I'm not suggesting this, because ultimately getting Apache completely done is the goal. But if something should happen that general engineering doesn't get as far as we would hope next year, I might be able to, I would rather not do that because that's not a big expenditure. I'd rather use levy money for that.
So, question on the whole parking lot thing. Other than improving it to land a helicopter on top of it, which is a vital service, I understand that. Do we actively use Fire Station 2 for fire services?
We do actively use Station Two. It is the home of our third fire engine. We've had an increase in our staffing levels that are living on in that side of town, which increases that. And as development continues to grow into that side of town, it will just become increasingly more critical to our responses.
And would you say that it's a worthy use of our tax dollars in this upcoming year, just to get it done, have it done, get those tanks out of there, get a new surface put down on that parking lot?
I believe it is. There was mention of scene landings or airport landings. I've been in the emergency services delivery in this area for the last 15 years. We've landed a helicopter on scene twice, and we went to the airport once.
Otherwise, either land here
Either
or
that,
Fire
yep.
Station 2.
Correct. It is also very nice for us to be able to have the parking lots at that point because we can control the entire scene. The patient transfer that happens inside a building, which may not sound like much until it's 20 below zero outside and we're trying to handle critical patient off. It has to be transferred from one piece of equipment to another piece of equipment, taking up to 10 minutes. And we're not doing that in inclement temperatures at that point. Also, we go across that parking lot, the condition it is now, we drop a cot wheel into one of those holes, we tip the patient over, now they're laying on the ground, or one of our folks get hurt because they step in that hole, roll an ankle, wrench a back, anything along the way, then that parking lot just got really cheap.
In other words, our workers' comp insurance company would like us if we pave the parking lot.
How many?
I am not going to equate our patient safety
I know.
or our employees' safety to lines on a balance sheet.
How many times have we landed the helicopter here in this year?
I don't have the exact number, but it's more than 5
At this here?
at this station.
And how many times have we landed it at Station 2?
We stopped landing at Station 2 approximately 4 months ago because of the condition of the parking lot. So it was a few times before that.
Thank you.
Does that outlaw, I mean, is there some reason you can't land it in the street?
There are the helicopter operation companies ask that we give them a certain amount of clearance between obstacles. If we put it into the road, we would be too close to the trees to the north.
Okay.
It also makes the scene harder to secure.
It is. We do secure the road anyway. We shut the road off. We shut it off at Tri-Lakes and at 15th Olive, whatever one comes out right there. So that we control that whole scene. And then we're able to again use the indoor facilities for that patient transfer.
The one question I had now, when you say that, when you secure a scene in that, I happened to be here that one day when you had someone here and you were waiting for the helicopter, and it seemed like it always seems like a long time, and it's probably a matter of seconds. But in that amount of time, that was an instance, like Travis had referred to, when I asked some questions. In situations like that where a person can get to the airport and the helicopter lands safely at an airport, that's another option. So when does that decision and how is that decision made?
Those decisions are also made by the helicopter operations company.
Okay.
In times of a little bit more inclement weather, when they would have to fly an instrument approach, that's what they would head straight to the airport because they can't fly an instrument approach into our facility. It's not pre-set up to do that. But that every bit of transport time that you have in between there is vital time that we lose on definitive patient care.
Now, with the ambulance being stationed here and the helicopter landing over there, they'd have to go from here over there and then to the hospital.
Which delays our back into service time, so the next call could be delayed.
So if the helicopter's landing here and the ambulance is here, we've saved time and probably saved a life.
We gave it everything we could at that point.
So then again, that answers the question of if they're landing here and the ambulance is here,
Yeah, but the ambulance would be out
but
wherever
it
the
might be
patient
out and
is.
about,
The
right?
but the
Yeah.
ambulance
In
would
that
still be,
particular- right.
the ambulance would still be in our area as soon as that patient is transferred. So if the next call comes, we're not, our ambulance isn't 20 minutes away again. Whether it's at Station 2, it's at Big Flat Station, it's at the Monroe Town Hall, or it's here at Station 1.
Okay.
So just getting back to the parking lot, I mean, we obviously would love to replace everything, make it all nice and perfect, but if there just isn't money for that, is there anything that can be done to that parking lot to fill the potholes and make it usable for
I'm not an
the
asphalt
helicopter land?
expert, I'd have to
Or,
defer that to
You
Brad.
know, I mean, just maybe to push it to next year, just to.
Again, I'd
so
have to
you could
defer,
use it
we'd have to
for
defer
these.
that to somebody who's an
Is
expert
that
in
anything you
asphalt.
could answer, Brad, without looking at it?
To make it so you can actually push a cart
So
across
that these, like the scenario of having a toppling cart, I mean, obviously nobody wants a patient dumped off into the ground or someone twisting their ankle or anything like that. Is there any way to make it fix it to make it usable if we need to push these funds? We would, not that we want to, but if we would need to push these funds to next year to completely repave it.
even to patch it, I don't think it'd be smooth enough to have that peace of mind that you're gonna be able to push a cart across there.
Okay. Could you get bigger wheels on your carts or something? Road wheels.
So I think too, in view of the condition of the
Extra
lot,
needed.
spending money on that is like putting a Band-Aid on it. I think it's a waste of funds.
Right, I'm just trying to see if there's any solution other to do it, not do it, just
But
to,
in all fairness to her question though, too, we've done that to plenty of roads just to make them through, right, Brad? I mean, we've put mastic on a lot of roads that we're gonna have to, I mean, we've done that too. Okay, but thank you for the conversation, so. We've already approved this one, so if there's no change, or does anybody feel inclined to change?
When we approved it last time, but did we approve it with bringing back that lower number minus the facade, or did we?
Yes.
Okay, so as presented here tonight is what we approved last time, okay.
So it includes the parking lot.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So we'll leave it for now, cause we're gonna have one more last shot at all of this when the final numbers come in.
but we're gonna have to come up with savings somewhere, so we're gonna have
Yeah.
to have a last shot
Sure.
somewhere.
Yep.
$5,650.
Or that amount's, I don't know, gonna have to be
We have to
lowered
come up
and,
with, yep, something's gotta give, so, all right. All right, moving on, Parks and Rec.
So Parks
Oh,
and
we
Rec,
got highway yet. Oh, yeah, we did highway, sorry. I didn't move it to the right pile.
Parks and Rec was distributed this evening. Just since you didn't have an opportunity to have it yesterday, we can just go a little bit slower through it. Parks prior year revenue, so again, Parks and Rec encompasses Parks Department, our work at Rome Town Center, if we do some additional pieces like with disc golf, Walden Park, but it also includes Derek Hughes. And what goes into Derek Hughes stays into Derek Hughes, just like library, because a great portion of that is grant funded through the state. So the park's prior year revenue is revenue that's carried forward from Derek Hughes. That stays with Derek Hughes to operate the park. Park's non-Derek Hughes prior year revenue is any savings we've had to date that has been mostly Rome Town Center Park. That's because people are donating to that, those funds carry forward. This year, we carried forward that $39,000. Next year, because of completing the band shell, we don't anticipate a carry forward. Parks property tax is the $35,650. That really goes to fund the water at the splash pad, the utilities in Rome Town Center, not including the streetlights, that's in the Rome Town Center budget, but utilities like your electric at the band shell, your electric at the gazebo, and things like starting up and turning off the sprinkler system at the parks. Your state park grant are the grants for Derek Hughes. Other state aid, we haven't received some in several years, but that was referred to for Derek Hughes. User fees are the funds that people pay to utilize the park, Derek-Hughes, to pay to ride out there. You can also see that there's some timber cutting that's gonna happen, so we'll have some revenue there. If we get any donations at Derek-Hughes, we did the raffle, we don't intend to do that next year. And then parks donations, non-Derek-Hughes, those funds, again, are mostly for Rometown Center. And you can see they reflect that $94,939, and that's the same as the spreadsheet that Melissa had distributed at a meeting maybe like last month, when we had the breakdown of park expenditures. Then as far as expenses go, park insurance, Derek-Hughes, park insurance, non-Derek-Hughes. Your park insurance, non-Derek-Hughes, you're gonna see a big increase there because now we have to pay for insuring the band shell. That's the increase for adding the band shell to our policy. Parks full-time is Derek-Hughes. 15% of the Director of Public Works goes to Derek-Hughes, and this year going forward, we're doing 6.75% of another full-time staff member in Public Works, because they assist with the grooming out there. That is offset by our grant at a 50% cost. And then part-time wages is for the attendance out at Derek-Hughes, and you can see there again, we have some administrative assistant cost. And then insurance is, again, that 15% and 6.75%. Same with retirement and life. If there is any unemployment, which we didn't occur any this year. And then parks operations, Derek-Hughes, Brad's got a breakdown there. Parks operations, non-Derek-Hughes, that is where we did the corp plan, and we broke that half would be paid this year and half would be paid next year. That's not really a capital outlay item, but it is associated with parks, so we split it 50-50. Your parks utilities, Derek-Hughes, is your electric, your Solaris, your cameras that are out there. And your parks utilities, non-Derek-Hughes, as you can see, that's your electric, which we did, I inputted an increase because we expect that to be utilized more by the band shell, and then the water for the splash pad. Those parks part-time wages, we don't utilize those anymore. We did when we were utilizing part-time staff to help us get the park ready for construction, but now those items have moved into Rometown Center for maintenance of Rometown Center. Then your parks outlay, Derek-Hughes, any savings that you have, again, to offset that cost, because Derek-Hughes stays with Derek-Hughes, would go into there. So you're gonna see your prior year capital outlay carry forward. And then your parks outlay non-Derek-Hughes would be your next phasing of the Rometown Center Park. It could be additional items in the future, but this 94,000 was really donated for the park. You can see on the revenue page that that's your 25,000 from Visit Rome, 25,000 from Legacy, your 40,000 from WEDC, and some additional miscellaneous donations. Those have all been provided for the park development.
What happened to the 25,000 from the town?
So, great question. Last year it was 30,000. It's been 25, 25, and 30.
Okay.
And that has been from tourism 30% funds. And so in the past, you've seen, and you can see on your previous year's budgets, your expenses have been 30,000 more than your revenues in the parks budget, because we've been taking that 25 or 30,000 from the tourism 30%. So if that was a choice of the board to spend $30,000 from tourism, 30% on parks, we would input that $30,000 into your parks outlay, non-Derek-Hughes. This budget would present unbalanced because you would be taking it from the tourism budget instead of the parks budget.
Didn't Sand Valley contribute money for the band shell in the parks?
50.
50, and you're
Is that
gonna,
on here? Did I see it? No,
That's
just
gonna
not see
be
it.
2023 projected year end. For community donations and fundraisers, there's 54,000 there.
Okay.
That 50,000 is represented from Sand Valley, and then additional donations received.
Thank you.
I would like to see that tourism budget for the parks increased from 30, but 25. I would like to see it moved up to 50,000. We have a good opportunity to finish the park next year over at Rome Town Center, but we need those additional funds for landscaping, more sidewalks, and also pickleball courts and a basketball court.
And I
In
don't,
addition to what we're gonna also ask for grants from Visit Rome and from Legacy.
I don't have our tourism numbers yet, but I'm hoping that we would have them for next week's meeting, so we could,
And I've seen that tourism figure grow over the years. We have not ever requested any money additional for the park since the inception, which was probably 5 years ago.
I would agree with Supervisor Bauerheit. You know, it's hard to say if we can approve the budget right now without knowing if those tourism dollars will go up. But assuming that they did go up, putting some extra money in the parks is another way to please people that come here to the town to enjoy vacation time here, you know, beyond what they do on the golf courses and on the lakes. You know, having the Rome Town Center, the splash pad, the Rhapsody, musical
Notes.
instruments.
The Rhapsody Notes, yeah.
Rhapsody Note, okay.
Yeah, it's a big draw for people. I mean, you go by the splash pad in particular, there are people there all time, every day during the summer.
Would you be willing to add new features to the splash pad? Because they've been the same since it was,
No, because we're talking about $30,000 practically in water usage
well,
over there
I'm
right
talking
now.
just one new feature, you know, if a new feature could be added to that.
Well, maybe later on, but I think our priorities now should be, you know, in finishing the park, maybe,
Well, and wasn't there
There's
some talk
just-
about pickleball courts out there at
Yes.
some point in time?
no,
They
next
did
year.
change now from 4 back to 6.
Right, and we're gonna present that to the planning commission. The thought is, all the input that we've gotten from everybody that we've talked to is if we build pickleball courts, there's gonna increase the demand for what we think it should be, which may be even 4 courts. Six courts would not be stretching it by any sense of the imagination. And if we turned out that they weren't in use, we could convert that second court, those other 2 pickleball courts, back to a tennis court.
I firmly believe it should be set up as a tennis court and could be used as pickleball courts if it's not used as a tennis court.
I thought that's what the plan was in the court, but we
That's
haven't
not what
finished
we
the
voted
court
on.
yet.
They took it out, they removed it and added 2 more
Right,
pickleball courts.
that's what we voted on in our last meeting.
It's your Park and Recs meeting? Okay, not when we have the
Right.
court meeting.
I would just note last year, which we're on track for, our 30% was 249,000. I would expect that we would at least be at the 249, if not slightly more. We did the Timberline expansion from our tourism 30% last year, so that's, again, I don't have new estimates yet for this year, but I would hope by next week we would have some new estimates to share. I think, just because of our staff transitions and going through budgets, if we're comfortable with parks, if we wanted to take a number out of tourism, we would slot it into tourism and not do what we've done in the past, which is present parks as unbalanced, but just know that when a dollar amount that was equal to what we had said would come out of tourism would get charged to tourism instead of shorting parks the 30. And we've only done it that way because it's all general funds and it come in the balance sheet at the end of the year, but it just makes it more confusing when doing the annual budget.
When is the court scheduled to be finished or complete?
Not till the first quarter of next year.
Is there any way for us to complete that sooner?
I think that Jeff from the community engagement session wanted to get those updated numbers from the state because they were finishing their
Okay.
plan, and to put that as a subset to ours. And I think just with the schedule with his other clients, he felt like the first quarter of next year was more achievable.
Okay.
I guess, help me understand why we have a court plan, and we're developing that, we're paying for that, and then Park and Recreation is going their, having their own recommendations before that court plan is done. Because he had some things that he brought up there about all these courts that are not lining up with what Parks is suggesting, no offense. So maybe you can just help me understand why we would pay to have a court plan done, do surveys, hire a consultant, and not wait for their recommendations.
I would say we had minimal input basically from the public on the court plan this year compared to what we had 5 years ago. I think there was only like 15 or 20 people at the most that had input to it here in person. There was a survey that was taken, I think, with what, Jamie, 150 people input to that survey.
157.
But everything that Jeff has told us is that the pickleball courts are in demand, and in talking to everybody, we know that's true. So that's why we have the plan that we have now.
I think he said that was true, but I think part of the reason there wasn't a very good turnout was there was very little announcement about that court public meeting. People really didn't even know it was happening. And he agreed with that about the pickleball courts, but he did not agree in their location. So that's where I'm just kind of getting, which is it? Are we hiring a professional to help us decide what to do? Or are we just not, are we disregarding that? Because then maybe we just don't bother continuing with the court plan.
I don't recall that he didn't have any input, or that he had any input about the location.
He did. He said putting them where they are because they're noisy, and also that there's no real, you're gonna utilize sidewalks for waiting areas and sitting for people who are not playing, because there's no
We have
space
waiting areas
available.
in the courts that we have planned now. There's a waiting area. And the reason that it's located where it is now is to make use of the restroom facilities for the band show.
I think one of his primary things was noise and people playing the game close to children playing. If you've ever been around pickleball courts and people have bad shots, miss shots.
Well, we would restrict it, certainly if there was a concert there, there wouldn't be any pickleball courts. I don't think there's anything that close to it right now that noise would be an issue.
The playground and the splash pad.
Well, they're there for recreation, so.
I'm just trying to think the whole thing
Yeah.
through. It seems we.
The noise
just-
that he talked about was disruptive if there would be a concert. And that could be handled by just not allowing the use of the courts during.
I did offer up a suggestion to Jamie. We do own a parcel of land. This is a little tangent here, but throwing it out there is that it was a conversation that did come up during the Corp, and it's not against pickleball. Fine, that's great. We want the pickleball courts there. But the location was discussed, and I agree with Jackie, if we're paying for a consultant to come in and it wasn't advertised, and we did have a poor turnout that evening. We could have advertised it better to get more people to turn out, just like the survey, online survey. But there was discussion, and so I suggested to Jamie that maybe we look at the parking lot parcel that's just across the road from the gazebo and put the sports courts there. The way you want to line them up, and as many as you would like, they'd be completely away from the grand lawn and the band shell.
It'd be closer to the apartments that are over there right now.
Well, you can put buffers there like trees and bushes. It's just an option. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there as an option, but just give it some thought. And that way it wouldn't, it's something to just think about for the future. I'm throwing it out there as an option. We've got plenty of land. It would fit all the additional courts now that you're planning on again versus, getting rid of the tennis court that we thought you were, at the previous meeting, your committee had talked about, and converting that into pickleball courts so that people who play tennis. It's just a thought, because people park up and down for festivals all the time on the roadways. They have shuttles that move them. We have how many acres of land there? So, was it,
The parking lot that would be about 1.4 acres.
so there'd be plenty of room for all those sports courts. We could have a buffer with trees. It would be off the way, and it's very close to the gazebo bathrooms. So it's just a thought, but something I just wanted to throw out there to everybody to think about. And they would be off to the side, easy walking distance, and a great spot for all those courts. Because the other thing you need to think about is the fencing. And that's gonna be right there in the middle of the grand lawn, and that's something that needs to come before planning and zoning. But I didn't mean to take us off on that little tangent there, but it's definitely something to think
We've
about.
pretty much addressed the fencing issue, I think, which we'll present to the planning commission.
Just
So how do
back to the matter at hand.
to
What
price.
are we, And I didn't mean offense by questioning the pickleball courts, I'm just trying to make sure it doesn't end up being hodgepodge. But back to this, so you're looking for the tourism, whether or not to stay with the 30% contribution that's currently happening versus a flat $50,000? Is that kind of what I
Yeah,
was hearing?
increasing the budget from tourism from 30,000 to 50,000, so it would be an increase of 20.
So I don't think that's an action item for tonight, because tourism wasn't part of the budget. So I can slot that into the tourism budget once we would get the estimates. Because we work with Visit Rome in order to achieve those estimates. And then we could have that conversation. I do, the parks budget as it's presented, if we did the piece about tourism, we wouldn't, again, we've always offset that. You've always seen a parks budget that's 25 or 30,000 more expenditures and revenues. We would discontinue that just to clean all of that up. We've spent those funds for band shell. We know we've got that 94 that's coming in for those grants. If we did the tourism piece, we'd handle that under the tourism budget. So then really the matter for action tonight would be if we're comfortable with the parks budget as presented.
I have a proposed motion, and I don't know if it makes sense. I would move that we accept the Parks and Recreation budget as presented with the provision that we examine funding additional monies out of the tourism dollars, dollar amount to be determined when the tourism dollars are known, but at a minimum, it would be $30,000.
Okay.
Goal would be higher.
And the goal would be 50.
What would be 50?
Okay.
I can support that.
Makes
I'll second
sense.
that.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Minter and a second by Supervisor Capel to approve the Parks Department budget as presented with the addition of tourism dollars. When we have exact numbers for the addition of,
Minimum 30, goal of 50,000.
any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Supervisor Capel.
That was great, moving through all of those budgets. We still would have tourism, TIF, and ARPA. Our TIF budget will be, because we're going a little bit earlier, is not gonna be totally complete, because we don't know that increment until we get all the taxing entities, but we'll be pretty close. It'll be an estimate, a placeholder. Our ARPA and Rome Water Utility. Rome Water Utility's meeting on Monday to talk about their budget. Just wanna point out, with that said, we're still $5,650 over. Don't know if we wanna have a little bit of a conversation about
Where?
where.
Yeah, we gotta find the money somewhere.
That's not bad considering all the increases that we're looking at.
Can we take the 5,650 out of prior year's revenue? I mean, I think we've shaved about as much as we can shave off of the different departmental budgets, short of reducing the proposed salary increases.
I was gonna say, would it be made up if the salary increase was 4.9%?
It would be, $5,000 would be more than made up. You probably would be doing like 4.89
What did you
or
suggest?
something, yeah.
Wage increase 4.9% or 4.95, whatever.
I
it
go at wages when we can easily
takes.
cut $5,000 out of this budget somewhere. I'm asking the question.
I think we'll be able to find 5,000 when we come down at
We
the
come-
end.
I suggest we come in with our ideas at our next budget meeting.
Yes,
For
please.
cutting the
Can we do that?
5,000.
Yeah.
Sure.
Would you be open to that?
I was just throwing out an idea.
I'd like to see everybody's ideas.
I'd like, yeah, we'll make a list and put that on the list.
I won't
It's
forget.
like Christmas.
Okay, I'll add that as a budget item, and I'll actually add that for the 5th, so we still would have the 12th if there was anything we needed to
Right.
go back over, we'll add
Would
that.
we have our books by then? Because these were, I have a question about these worksheets. Is there a way for that to be done? I mean, we used to do it in Workforce, I mean, granted, things can always be redone, but in the future, rather than you put them in this and then we go to workhorse. I mean, this could be done in workhorse, right? So you don't have to go back and forth between the worksheets.
So the piece about the worksheets is that Workhorse doesn't give you the detail, right? So
Right,
you can't see what's
right.
in the line items. I've been inputting the numbers into Workhorse, as we've been approving the budgets.
But we're not ready yet to get there.
Yeah, and the piece of,
Okay.
at some point, you're like redoing it, right? So if we know that we've got an approved budget, that all of our budgets are approved, it makes the most sense to do one big entry and to balance than it does to do several entries and not balance along the way.
Okay.
That's all. But I can have budget books ready before the budget meeting for review, for sure, but it doesn't make sense to print you all of those copies, they're just gonna be
No,
wasted.
understood.
Just as a reminder, I will not be here on the 5th, so
Oh,
hopefully
that's right.
everybody else is.
Forward your list
Did you
of-
want us to feel bad for
Sure.
you?
Didn't ask for that.
This lucky lady will be traveling. All right, so on to number 9. Discussion and possible action, approval of side letter agreement between Town of Rome and Rome Professional Police Association /WPPA/LEER to change start and end times of day/night shifts, cap sick time accumulation, and 2024 pay increase.
The side,
Cap, excuse me, let me just back up a minute. You say cap sick time accumulation, but you don't mean 2024 pay increase. You just mean the sick time. So I read that right?
cap, sick time accumulation, and 24, 2 separate items.
All right, just want to
Separate.
make sure that I'm reading that correctly. Thank you.
So the side letter was in your packet. I believe Chief Robbie is still here if you had any additional questions. Item to note, on the second page, January 1, 2024, the sergeant's wage annually should be $73,028.80.
You mean 2025?
2025. I do mean 2025. Apologize. I said
That's all right.
2024. So we're just,
Sergeant.
if when a motion is made,
Jackie,
Oh,
right at the very bottom.
oh, not.
if the motion
700
can be made
oh,
with that
that's
correction,
too
just so it's noted in minutes that the sergeant's wage in 2025 is not $723,000.
Got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Bill already let us know, and he saw that.
bad. You just broke his bubble.
Her,
Her.
his and her,
Yeah.
2 of them, yes.
I'll make a motion, we accept the side agreement with the Rome Police Professional Association, then I have a question.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Supervisor Capel, a second by Supervisor Minter to accept the letter of agreement between the Town of Rome and the Rome Professional Police Association
With the change,
with the change of
the salary for the sergeant in 2025 to be $73,028.80.
yes, $73,028.80 annually.
And my question, Chief, you're on board, 100%,
Yes,
with the changes as suggested?
And the union was agreeable to all of those. Okay.
correct.
All right.
Union agreeable to all
That was-
changes.
That's all.
Any other discussion or questions regarding the agreement?
I would just note, so this does represent the 5%, which was a placeholder, right? And then this is next on the agenda. So confirming this would be accepting that 5%. I still think there's that comfort level, but just mentioning it because then when we go to that next agenda item, if we can take out placeholder, right, that lends to that assurance that that is what it is moving forward. It also takes it off the list for Thursday.
Yeah, Jackie, notation, okay, all right, because that was your question, so I don't want you to miss that opportunity. Okay, any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Item number 10, discussion and possible action, review town board budget priorities, wage and benefit increases, placeholders.
You wanna read that other one too? We can take them
Oh,
at the
sure,
same
I
time.
can do that, and and transition plan document for administrator position.
So again,
And
just
then I've
noting,
got-
that was a placeholder. We're down to that $5,600. We have approved it for the union, that'll be the side letter that we've assigned. Do we wanna take a formal motion that it's 5%, cause our motion prior to this was a placeholder in the budget? If there was any
I move that
revisiting.
we replace the word placeholder and grant the employees of the town of Rome a 5% pay increase, January 1, 2024.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Supervisor Minter, a second by Supervisor Bauerheit for the wage and benefit proposed increases of 5% and health insurance
That it
as
was previously presented, that the
Previously
HSA
presented.
stays the same, the wellness benefit stays the same.
everything stays the same with the 5% increase. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Transition plan document for the administrator position. You each had a copy of that, which shows some of the responsibilities, and so did you?
I just wanted to note one change. It's on page 1, both for monthly and quarterly. There was the last one under monthly was the piece about forwarding the Lifestar monthly activity report, and the first one under quarterly was about the assistance with the Big Flats Monroe Rome district. At the EMS meeting, Chairwoman Jamadi volunteered for that, and so that duty should change from EMS board termination to town chairwoman. So that's the only change on the V2 document that you received.
And the Board of EMS Commissioners agreed to that, because they're all part-time, and we meet more regularly than they do. And it's just simply, there's a template for the meeting agendas, and it's pretty much the same every quarter, so I agreed to be willing to do that, post it, and do the meeting minutes and carry it over quarterly. And we will be coming up on negotiations this next year, so that'll be coming back to each town board, and Nick will be, Attorney Flanagan, who is the town attorney for all 3 communities, would be involved in those negotiations. So every town board would be brought up to date throughout the year. Okay. All right, dates and items for future agenda meetings. Item 11, next agenda items. Review transition document for town administrator position, review current administrator job description, and review GovHR proposal for potential town administrator recruitment.
Those items, it'll probably be one item with subsets. I did reach out to GovHR, and they said that I should receive a proposal by the end of this week, so I can include that in your packet. So also, some additional items for the next meeting. We would have the budgets, hopefully, of tourism, TIF, ARPA, Rome Water Utility, and revisit general. We've got an easement consideration at Derek Hughes, an extension of our contract with Baziner, and we would be looking to review the supervisor's input on that position description that was handed out tonight, and ideas for the 5,000.
So we'll have, bring all of our budgets back, or you'll have updated copies? Or do you wanna give us updated copies digitally? We can print them ourselves if we need them. Or we'll just use what we have.
There wouldn't be many changes on the items that you have, right? Most
Right.
of them would be, yeah.
So
But
we
if
can
there's
just think
any that-
through, yeah.
That you would need another digital copy of, just let me know. Otherwise, most of the copies that you have as of tonight, we didn't make many changes.
Right, so wherever you wanna cut, or you have ideas you wanna change, I already thought of one.
Just remember, it has to be levy, right? If you cut something out of general, there's no levy.
The community room, is that a general?
Yep. The other item I just wanted to ask for the 5th, did we want a demo from Civitech that night too?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I will reach out to
For
him.
zoning hub, that was on my, thank you.
That was my list for the 5th.
We'll have him go a little bit more brief, just in case, you know, cause we've got,
It'd be a long meeting.
yeah.
Were there other items that
You said TIF, ARPA, Rome Water,
Revisit general, and
general,
tourism,
we have an easement for Deer Creek.
cuts, what kind of easement?
utility easement.
they're updating the power line, they're going up to,
Oh,
Tri-North, and it goes
Up
to
to-
our property, so this is a quick
okay.
sign and go, nothing major.
Oh, thank you. That makes me feel better. Speaking of Derek Hughes, in the budget, do we have money that we can maybe do, this came up at, the Watfa ride, which turned out to be a very nice day, even though the rain kind of stayed away for a while. Do we have enough money in there to actually, do maybe some more cleanup this year? As far as like the fence line, some of it's looking pretty broken and folding over and down trees and that sort of thing. Did we allow enough money in there for cleanup and maybe some repair work?
We could, I think some of the fence you're talking about though is actually on Rapid Angels property, so there's a little bit of a,
Like right behind our shelter,
to the
to the south of our shelter,
southwest of the shelter, there's areas there that is, yeah, it's their fence.
but right south of our shelter, it's looking kind of bent and the,
Half and half.
yeah,
Part of it's ours, yes, we can fix that.
yeah.
Is it Tri-North or is it Rapid Angels?
Rapid Angels.
It's Rapid Angels. 'Cause behind our shelter would be their property.
Yeah, it's very close, the line, it's like
Okay.
in the middle of that youth.
Track.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sorry,
All right.
one moment.
Excuse me?
Using the borrowed money potentially for other sources. If you, what was the item that came up when we were talking about that if we transition?
If we borrowed the whole amount
Yeah.
for all
Yep.
6 roads versus 4.
Yep, but the investment piece, we'll get an answer on
Yeah.
the investment piece.
Do an
Oh.
update to the board.
Yep,
Yeah. And that would only, we would do the exact same thing, I think we'd all be in consensus on that, that any money we borrow for roads would stay with our roads.
Dana, did you see this?
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
It's got to go legal change.
So, all right, anything else? All right, next budget meeting date and time is the third meeting would be for budgets, no, that would be our fourth actually, wouldn't, but anyway, third meeting, Thursday, October,
Yep, next budget meeting is Thursday, October 12th, that's the last one, that's the final call. But we will, also, on October 5th is our next regular board meeting.
regular meeting.
So October 5th, 5 o'clock, and then Thursday, October 12th, 3 p.m.
But we are touching on some things on October fifth.
Yep.
Okay.
Hopefully October 12th would just be our last, touch base, feeling good, balanced. Is there anything else we want to discuss before we make a recommendation to go to hearing?
Final cuts on the fifth. Final cuts on the fifth, everybody.
Yep.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
It is 5:37 p.m.